Good morning all and welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting of 15 December 2021. And of course it is the last of the year with Christmas break coming upon us. How quickly the year has gone and what a big year it's been. Welcome councillors, staff, members of the gallery including the media. I'd like to acknowledge we've got Holly and Nisha here today. I'd just like to acknowledge Nisha, who is finishing with Burnett today and leaving next Wednesday to pursue her career in the city. And we would just like to thank you, I think on behalf of Council, thank you for the wonderful contribution you've made to our region through your role, your journalistic role. You've done it with complete integrity, honesty, and you'll be certainly personally and professionally sadly missed by everyone in the region. Of course, you know, Nisha, you're always welcome back anytime. We'd love to have you back in the region. So all the best to you for the future. Yeah. So I now call the meeting open at 9 o'clock. Do we have any requests for leave of absence? No, we don't. So we'll move on to the prayers. We don't have a minister with us this morning, so I'll share with everybody the Lord's Prayer. Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation. And lead us, what's the next bit, Councillor Duff? But deliver us from evil. Amen. I lost my way there. Isn't it funny? I say that every morning before I get out of bed, and yet I couldn't do it twice in one day. There you go. Recognition of traditional owners. Thank you, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to acknowledge country and the traditional owners of the land where we meet this morning, the Waka Waka land, and acknowledge the elders, both past, present and emerging. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, we'll move on now to item 5, declarations of interest. Any declarable or prescribed conflict of interest, councillors? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to declare that I am a member of the Kingaroy Chamber of Commerce, and I know they have an item in front of us, and whilst I am just a member, I don't feel that does impact my ability to make a decision in regards to this, and would like to stay in the room.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, and of course, in accordance with previous resolution of Council, and of course, Councillor Shoemaker's membership does not give rise, is not a declarable conflict of interest as such, because she's not a member of the executive. So certainly welcome your participation in that. Any further? No. Okay. Sorry, Councillor Froloff. Thank you.
I, Councillor Ros Froloff, inform this meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in relation to item 10.6, COVID vaccination mandates and the position of council. Declarable conflict of interest arises because I am an employee of a state government organisation. I propose to leave and stay away from this place where the meeting is being held while this matter is discussed and voted on.
Thank you, Councillor Froloff.
Mayor, if I may, Council will also have it in the petition in 6.1.
Yes, can we include 6.1 in that, Councillor Froloff? Yes, we'll do so now. Thank you, Mr CEO. Councillor Duff.
I, Councillor Cathy Duff, inform this meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest as defined in section 150EN of the Local Government Act 2009 in agenda item 19.1, water connection at Lot 1, SP 256027 Meek Street, Kingura. The nature of my interest is as follows. This declarable conflict of interest arises because I have previously, approximately 3 years ago, engaged their services. This matter was resolved at the Infrastructure Standing Committee meeting on Wednesday, the 1st of December 2021, resolution number 2021/100. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, my turn. I'm Brett Otto. I inform this meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in relation to item 15.2, request for funding, Kingaroy Chamber of Commerce and Industry Incorporated. The nature of my interest is as follows. This declarable conflict of interest arises because I'm the director of a company which owns an accounting practice adjoining the street leading to the said premises. I propose to leave and stay away from the place where the meeting is being held while the matter is discussed and voted on. Right. Okay, thank you, Linnell. Any further conflict of interest disclosures? If not, we'll move on. Thank you all. To item 6.1, we have a petition has been forwarded strongly. Oh, sorry, Oz. Of course, you need to go. Okay, so Councillor Freloff's left the room. Thank you. Okay, 6.1, petition strongly opposing the state government COVID-19 mandatory vaccination at item 6. The recommendation is that the petition be received and referred to the Chief Executive Officer to determine appropriate action. Do we have a mover for such? A mover, Councillor Jones, thank you. A seconder, Councillor Potter. Speakers, anything to clarify, Mr. CEO, on that? Thank you.
No, Mr. Mayor. The only aspect we haven't put on the end of it to report back to council, because the petition is quite heavily reliant on a lot of the correspondence we've got already. So I was going to deal with the petitioners and deal directly back to them and pass on information that we've prepared. So it won't necessarily generate a separate report, and particularly with item 10.6, if there is future actions, it will come out of 10.6, not 6.1.
Thank you for clarifying, Mr. CEO. Okay, further speakers? We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, can we bring Councillor Freloff back? Yeah, thanks, Councillor Henson. We'll now move on to 7.1, minutes of the council meeting held on the 24th of November 2021. That can be found at 7 in the agenda. Recommended that the minutes of the council meeting held on 24 November be received and the recommendations therein be adopted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Freloff, seconder Councillor Potter. Speakers? Questions in relation to the contents? No? Let's go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 8.1, business outstanding table for the ordinary council meeting. That's at 39. Recommendation is that the business outstanding table for the ordinary council meeting be received for information. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconder Councillor Henson. Speakers? Okay, thank you, Mr. CEO, for providing that comprehensive report. I'll now take us to the vote on that one. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Moving on to 9.1, notice of motion, round 7 of Stronger Communities program, Parks project is at 64. And we'll just get that here. And I'll now hand over to Councillor Shoemaker to provide that motion. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. I'd like to move that South Burnett Regional Council select a shovel-ready project from its project pipeline or current CapEx program for community-owned buildings or parks that aligns with the project guidelines for the federal electorates of Flynn and Maranoa, and submit an expression of interest to round 7 of the Stronger Communities program for a co-contribution from the federal government of $20,000 per project before the 19th of January.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Potter, thank you. Okay, Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As per the report I've provided here, it has come to my attention that both our federal members in the electorates of Flynn and Maranoa currently have this funding program open. I know we have a large proportion of projects in our project pipeline, and I know there are many things that these funds could help and support achieve better outcomes for our community. The fund is around achieving vibrant communities, and what I'm proposing here is that we give our staff and our officers an opportunity to have a look at their project pipeline and decide what projects to actually submit, what are ready to run, what are shovel ready, and put forward an application for these funds. I see it, whilst it's only $40,000, maximising any funding or grant opportunities I think is very important to this council and our financial position, and it's a great opportunity to have both the ministers back in our region and of course advocate for other things while they're in town. So fully supportive of this, and commend the motion to the floor.
Further speakers? Councillor Potter.
Thank you. Look, I'd really like to commend Councillor Shoemaker for bringing this motion to the floor, so thank you very much. And I do believe this is a very worthwhile one. But I'm also on the understanding that maybe GMOMA might have a few ideas already. So I look forward to discussing them at a later date. But no, thank you very much for bringing this, and I think this is really worthwhile.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Okay, any further speakers? If not, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 9.2, notice of motion, George Street Car Park at 132. And I'll now hand over to Councillor Jones to present his motion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that the South Burnett Regional Council design and construct a car park facility to service Kingaroy CBD, interconnecting George Street and King Street, and service the Kilkeevan to Kingaroy Rail Trail, and allocate $750,000 from the LRCI Phase 3 funding, with the project to be shovel-ready and delivered in the 2022 calendar year.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Fryloff, thank you. Councillor Jones.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I certainly believe that this is a significant regional infrastructure project that has many significant benefits to the whole region, and particularly in complementing the KTP. It also has the capabilities of servicing the Kingaroy, Kilkeevan to Kingaroy Rail Trail. And after having discussions yesterday with TMR and all that sort of stuff, with the proposals that are in transit at the moment, trying to upgrade crossings, safety crossings and all that, incorporated with King Street and all that, trying to get heavy vehicle transport to and from Swickers and out of the CBD, I think this is a perfect time to extend that and work with the area behind that we've discussed in previous meetings, and I believe that there was support out there for it. So that's why I have brought it to the table, and considering that it is in a time frame where the KTP will be completed in the October, November months of next year, it's critical that we get this done, and the staff have the confidence that the money's there and they can move forward and get this project done. Thank you.
Councillor Duff.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move an amendment that the George Street Car Park project be considered by Council in the following year's LRCI funding, 2023. That the George Street Car Park project be considered by Council in the following year's LRCI funding, 2023.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Do we have a seconder? Okay, I'll second that. So we'll now, so the matter before us is the proposed amendment, which Councillor Duff has presented. I'll just wait for Lynelle to get that done, and then we'll get you to speak to that. Thank you, Councillor Duff. Okay, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think that we've already got a list of projects that some have already been resolved, including the Black Butt extension to the footpath. I'm not against the George Street Car Park. I just think that it hasn't been taken out to community consultation. It's a new project. We've already got $9.68 million worth of pavement rehabilitation and Reseal works on the list that has been workshopped for options for this funding. So there's $9.68 million worth of pavement rehabilitation. Everybody's only got to look at the state of the roads at the moment. And these include roads like Swains Road, Geelong, $550,000, Bowman Road, Black Butt North, $165,000, Iron Pot Road, pavement rehabilitation, multiple sections, $320,000, Wandai Charlton Road, Rural, and $350,000. Like, that's just on that list. I've driven around and had a look at roads that are just streets in Kingaroy and taken photographs of them, and these are not even on the list of reseals or rehab. Edward Street, Wandai, just a complete mess. That's not even on the list. West Street, Kingaroy, Moore Street, Kingaroy, River Road. I don't know if any of the Kingaroy councillors have driven along River Road. It's just in a complete mess. So I've got a whole industrial avenue. That's what it looks like. So I just want to, I'll pass that around, but they're just roads, Sutton Street, Blackbutt, there's just roads in here that are not on any of these lists, that are just in a complete mess. So I just think at this point in time that even the Kingaroy people would be keen to get the roads resealed and fixed up before we start doing new projects. And as I said, there's already a list of projects that there's just way too many on the list we already have without going ahead now and doing George Street Car Park. I think it can wait to be considered in next year's budget. Thank you.
Further speakers? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did have a couple of questions on notice because I have noticed there is some Facebook rhetoric around this subject, and I just wanted to clarify for the chamber. My questions on notice that I supplied to General Manager yesterday afternoon, sorry, which I had right here, and now I've missed, were really, General Manager Jed, I hope you've received them, around, can you confirm this project does not actually impact on our current capital program or our current capital operational maintenance programs for the roads portfolio? I'll find my exact question.
Yes, that through you, Mayor. Yes, that's correct because we're looking at external funding associated with this one. Yes, that's correct.
Yes, and reading through the LRCI guidelines, I found on page 110, it says under phase 3, eligible funding programs, funding recipients will be required to maintain their overall capital spending on roads and community infrastructure funded by their own revenue or above their 21-22 capital spending level, to focus on overall capital spending projects. Eligible funding recipients with greater flexibility to set and deliver the infrastructure priorities in their communities. I guess I was looking at some of these guidelines and really thinking that we've already got a number of priorities in our region, absolutely, and allocating funding like this is a real challenge. But I know through the extensive consultation that's been done with the KTP project and the extensive feedback that we have all been given around the impacts to car parking to make our CBD safe, we have legitimate concerns from business owners in the street. And if you've been up around the George Street car park area, and just to correct Councillor Duff, of course, as a Kingaroy councillor, I drive the local roads, and of course I'm aware of those issues that you've presented today. I keep a long list myself, which I'd be happy to share notes any time. But having in-depth conversation with business owners, particularly in the Hayley Street area, I know that a number of them are already parking in that George Street area. And these people are actually concerned. There's issues when it rains. The mud in that area is terrible. There's no safety in terms of lighting or footpaths in that area. And if those business owners were starting to actually park in the CBD, the impact on our ability to get parking would be so much greater. Whilst I do agree, I have some concerns around the time frame, if we'll actually be able to deliver this next year, and I would like that confirmed for the chamber if we move this motion today. I do see this project as a priority, and as I know from the residents and organisations like the Rail Trail Association, an actual designated rail trail head, the Kingaroy-Kilkevin Rail Trail, is very important. At the moment, we've got people pulling up on the side of a highway trying to access that rail trail. And what a project like this will do will enable caravans, bike riders to park safely, to unload their children and their bicycles, and the work that continues with DTMR will be important in terms of that crossing across the road and the King Street mess that we've got there. But this project will be really important not only for the CBD businesses, the users and the people who live in Kingaroy, but also those who access that rail trail. So if provided we can deliver it within this time frame, I'm supportive of the motion. and would like to confirm that with Manager Jed.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just in response to that, it's a calendar year delivery, I believe, for LRCI. So, yes, I would be confident that it can be designed and delivered in the calendar year in line with the requirements of the funding.
Councillor Potter.
Thank you. Look, I totally agree with Councillor Shoemaker on this. And yes, Councillor Duff, we are aware of all those roads and we have put requests in for them. But this is the official start of the rail trail. Always has been, no change there, but we have never, ever done anything with the official start. Instead, we're allowing people to drive on the rail trail at a start off the main highway, as Councillor Shoemaker said, where they're not actually meant to be driving. That area is meant, ever since we did the rail trail, that area has always meant to be cordoned off so people couldn't drive on that section. And we do it all the time. You know, councillors have done it. So for this reason, and apart from that, we got all the businesses that we've spoken to, and also I have been contacted by many residents from out of town. They live in some of the outer areas, villages and towns from the South Burnett, and they have contacted me about parking and the parking issues now within the CBD. So look, I'm totally agreeing with Councillor Shoemaker on this one and Councillor Jones that I do believe that this is highly important for the whole of the South Burnett.
Further speakers? Further speakers? No, you've had your opportunity, Councillor Shoemaker. Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I won't be supporting the amendment, obviously, because I'm fully supportive of the notice of motion that I put forward. But just in regards to needing more community consultation, when the KTP consultation first started, and I remember, and I'm happy to be corrected by any councillor in the room or any staff member, but when we first went out to community consultation, this was one of the first things that we put forward was the car park in George Street to complement the KTP. Now, I want to make something very clear, and we're focusing on the loss of car parks in the KTP. 99 of them have been lost, but they have been lost because of road safety concerns. They were taken out to be compliant with road safety. Am I correct, Mr. Acting General Manager?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Yes, and also disability, provision of additional disability parking, yes.
So, following the other two local councillors for the township of Kingaroy and their comments and the feedback that we've had from businesses, it is a significant reason why I brought it forward. It is to complement the loss of car parks because of the KTP and the road safety issues and the disability. Now, Councillor Shoemaker touched on social media and all that sort of stuff. I don't get involved in it, I don't read it. I have people ringing me and saying, are you okay, all the rest of it, they're giving you hammering and all that. I will continue to do my job as the best as I possibly can for the whole of the region. So there was a lady that posted how good it was to have disability car parking in Haley Street and how wonderful it was and the amount of positive comments and feedback. So again, I'm not going to stand up, get into an arguing backwards and forwards. I've said my piece, why I support it, and community consultation has been there right from the word go. So I won't be supporting the amendment. I'll be fully supportive of the notice of motion.
Any further speakers? Councillor Henson or Froeloff? Okay. All right, I'll just give some summarising comments and then go to Councillor Duff for right of reply in relation to the amendment. So, Councillor, I would caution. I would ask us to proceed with caution here as a council. We have a $2.99 million deficit budgeted for 21-22. What that means is that we will be not funding depreciation to the extent of $3 million as it stands at the moment. We have just received notice that we're going to potentially, and Mr. CEO will clarify this further in our report, finance report. We've received a letter only recently to say that we're going to lose $499,000 of FAGS grants each and every year for the next 3 years. That's 1.5 million. That will also be indexed for CPI, so that 1.5 million will increase. That means that our deficit in this current financial year could potentially, or certainly if not this year, next year, increase by $500,000. If we spend $750,000 on George Street, this will be another asset that we will have to depreciate, further increasing our operating deficit. New assets serve to increase our depreciation. And as we know, depreciation is going to impact on our operating budget. Our OPEX will be affected by that. Our deficit is increased every time we build a new asset that requires depreciation. Now, I have spoken for some time about the importance of us using external funding. I know our General Manager of Finance has raised this issue, the importance of using our external funding to fund renewables, renewing assets. We have many assets across the region that require renewal. With the level of unfunded depreciation we're currently running, we're going to have to dip into our cash pool if we're going to achieve our 90% sustainability ratio, if we don't use external funding carefully. We should be using this external funding for renewing existing assets, in my view. We have committed $1.3 million to projects such as the Blackbutt CBD out of LRCI funds last year. An extra $300,000. Sorry, we've already committed $1.3 million of projects out of the round 3 LRCI money, and I've got a list of them here, ones that I think that we've committed to. There are many that we haven't committed to yet because we haven't had that discussion and finalised what we'll be doing with our LRCI money. But we have agreed to give $300,000 extra to the Blackbutt CBD. There's about 1.3. That'll leave about $2 million left in that round 3 LRCI money. This is without considering stage 2 of the Wondai Industrial Estate. And as Councillor Henson often says, do it once and do it well. This is without considering the Wondai Main Street. Now, I was in Wondai yesterday, and look, I have driven through George Park. I've walked through George Street car park. I know it very well, and I can see the issues that are faced there. But have a look at that image. That is the footpath. I know Councillor Henson's well aware of it in Wondai. Now, we've talked about allocating $750,000 to that. If that's not the worst footpath, Main Street in the South Burnett, I don't know what is. It is seriously debilitated and needs renewing, needs upgrading, needs repairing. It's a hazard for pedestrian traffic, and I think the Wondai community deserve investment in that project. Furthermore, we have in our current Reseal/rehabilitation budget, capital budget, $1.149 million, which was reduced from what had been previously budgeted back in 1920 of $3.25 million in our forward forecasts for rehab and reseals. Next year's rehab reseal budget has also been reduced on what was originally budgeted in 1920. I think we need to take further time to fully consider all the needs across the region rather than cherry-picking this project out of what is a long list of critical projects that have been in the planning for some time. For example, our sealed roads across the region. And I think we need to do a proper analysis of all these projects. We have discussed, and we've had General Manager Jed in here, talking about using a prioritisation tool to do the assessment on our capital projects, whether it be LRCI, whether it be Works for Queensland, whether it be CapEx, that we do a proper, thorough analysis. What is the needs across our region before we start committing ourselves to individual projects? And I'm really looking forward to us going through that process, doing it properly, doing it scientifically, doing it correctly with that prioritisation tool. And I just feel that we're jumping the gun here in committing to this project when we haven't been through that process yet. To my mind, that would be good governance, that would be proper due diligence to go through that process. Now, I am concerned, as Councillor Duff has raised, and there are many roads, particularly in Kingaroy residential area, and I live in Division 4, and I hear from a lot of my neighbours up there that they're really concerned about the state of the roads residentially in Kingaroy. You only have to go 1 or 2 streets back from the CBD to look at River Road, and not just out, and it goes, River Road needs resealing, there's no doubt about it. From the centre of town, River Road, where it joins to Walter Road, right through out to the Kingaroy Burren Down Road. All along there, Manager Searle has confirmed to me that needs a full reseal. Now, that's a large project. You know, Industrial Avenue out here, it's a major industrial road. We've got Kingaroy Freight, we've got Kingaroy Hydraulics and Engineering. They are major businesses. They're driving on a road at the moment that is just breaking up and falling to pieces. And it has been, the rain didn't cause this. It was like that 12, 18 months ago. I've been fielding phone calls from those guys since the election about the condition of that road. They are major contributors to our economy. West Street Kingaroy, we're constantly patching it up. The northern end of West Street Kingaroy, out near the Bosia plantation, constantly patching it, desperately in need of rehab and reseal. First Avenue Kingaroy, you know, again, a major route for a lot of our businesses out there. It's absolutely fully deteriorated, that road. If you go for a drive out there, the potholes, the defects, the pavement movement is tragic to see what's happening there. And trucks and vehicles are on that road every single day. Gore Street, Mergen, you know, both ends of it, in front of the school, down in front of Total Building Supplies. The road is completely wrecked there and needs rehab and reseal. That's just a minute. Moore Street, up near where I live, the road needs resealing. You can see it's down to the original seal and it needs another reseal. And it would have to carry 2,000 cars a day. These aren't even on our capital expenditure program. We haven't budgeted for these. I believe this is where we should be redirecting our LRCI money in this financial year, because if we let those membranes break and the water get into the pavement, we are going to have further cost in terms of rehabilitation of these key roads around Kingaroy. And I'd like to see this project put on hold for 12 months and that we invest a significant amount of that $3.2 million into road reseals around Kingaroy and other towns around the region like Edward Street, Wondai, where the road is absolutely destroyed and does need rehabilitation, does need rehab and reseal. I would like to see that we seriously do consider once and for all the CBD Main Street of Wondai, because being there yesterday, councillors, it really is in desperate need of some TLC. In addition to that, you know, we have a number of other projects that are on this list that I could talk about, but I won't go through them in detail, other than to say I think it would be good governance, I think it would be proper due diligence to take our time with this. I absolutely support the KTP. I think it's looking tremendous. I absolutely support the George Street car park. I can see the need for it. It's in a real mess. People are parking out there. Yes, we have to do it, but I'm just concerned about timing, and I think it would be prudent to leave it for another 12 months, and let's plan it carefully, let's get it right, and let's do it once and do it well, but let's take our time and get it right. And that's probably all I'm suggesting at this stage. So I'm going to support the motion on that basis. Councillor Duff, over to you for right of reply. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I agree that we need to do it eventually, but not now. I think the mood of the region is to get our roads fixed up. As Mayor Otto said, there's already some projects we've earmarked with that LRCI money, but there's an opportunity to use some of it towards these roads. And I just want to read that this is an email that went to all of the councillors from Barbara Hockey, ratepayer. I'm gravely concerned this motion may take funding from our roads program and urge councillors to reject such a proposal. The Kingaroy redevelopment project is grossly overfunded now while our roads are neglected. The recent rain event has made conditions extremely dangerous on many roads, which should take priority over car parks in Kingaroy. And I think that Barbara's views reflect the views of the majority of the people across our region that are concerned about smashing their vehicles with potholes everywhere. I've had people saying that they've buckled their vehicles and they're wanting to sue council, and this is right across our region, and I think it's irresponsible to consider a new project on the back of what's happening across our region right now. And so I urge my fellow councillors to reconsider this George Street car park and leave it to be considered in a future budget. Well, in my recommendation, the next year's budget for the LRCI funding. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes the debate. We'll go to the vote now. Those in favour? Okay. Those against? Okay, the motion has been defeated. Councillor Duff, Councillor Henson and Councillor Otto in favour. Against, Councillor Jones, Councillor Potter, Councillor Froloff and Councillor Shoemaker. Got that, Linnell? Thank you. So that motion has been lost. We'll now return to Councillor Jones' original motion. We'll open that back up for further debate. Further speakers. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the debate. Actually, it's been, and for your comments, you're not wrong. Actually sitting there thinking about some of the things you said, it made me think, what the hell am I doing here? There are certainly big challenges this region faces, and certainly giant issues to overcome. I was with you in Wondai yesterday. It was wonderful to be at the Wondai breakfast, and actually wonderful to have a walk around and have a look with the business community, and I certainly value their contributions to our region. I wanted to note and give them reassurance, because in the conversations we had, it sounded like they felt a little forgotten and like Wondai wasn't important. And I strongly disagree. Wondai CBD here on page of our agenda, sorry, it doesn't say on the bottom, it actually states the Wondai CBD has been flagged for a $700,000 spend for Works for Queensland money for Scott Street roundabout to Edward Street for the 23rd-24 year. So that's not just the roundabout, that's the footpath. That's my understanding that we walked yesterday. And we have flagged that as a project in our pipeline, a key priority project that I think every councillor in this chamber agrees something needs to be done. Wondai is a beautiful town. And I do see and support funding for the Wondai CBD. I absolutely think the rate of growth there is really important. I just wanted to point out, because I think we are mixing issues here, and certainly I agree, Mr. Mayor, in terms of funding for our Reseals program. That's really important, and I know and respect the decisions of the previous council who prioritised rural roads and gravel resheeting and grading, so that a grader was across every rural road. And the discussions that we've had, I'd acknowledge the discussions we've had around the asset data that has informed that shift from rural roads to urban roads. And I think we'll all agree that needs to happen sooner rather than later, and that is in the pipeline for the new year. I just wanted to bring it to your attention that rail trail in Kingaroy for the past 8 months has had 24,411 passes of the Kingaroy marker on the rail trail. 24,411 passes in 8 months. And everything I read in the LRCI guidelines is around creating community benefit and creating economic growth. That rail trail is a key piece of infrastructure when it comes to economic growth of our region. And when you look at the KTP project and you look at our goals to really transform our local economy, to bring people back to the CBD and to encourage street time dining, which I know just recently the hunter-gatherer event where tons of people turned out to sit on our new footpath, have a glass of wine and listen to some local music. I know we are all working toward the same thing in that regard, and we want to reinvigorate our communities. I know that a project like this will be important. A project like this will be important because we need to provide parking that enables those rail trail users to park safely and to spend their dollars in our town, because our local businesses and cafes are relying on that. They need that injection. And I believe this project is important. I believe every project in our project priority pipeline, the Wondai project, is important. And I believe absolutely when it comes to that industrial estate for Wondai, it was wonderful to take a drive around there yesterday. And I believe that $900,000, sorry, I'm getting confused. $900,000 we've invested in stage 1 there is money well spent. And I absolutely believe there needs to be a stage 2. But I agree with Councillor Duff, there are a number of projects and in the pipeline. I guess I can see an opportunity on the back of the KTP project with the material that we've stockpiled in George Street to make the most of that by spending the money now, by doing the project now. while the crews are on the ground, I think there's cost savings to be found through fast tracking this rather than waiting and bringing a crew back and having to move all that material that's there at the moment when it could be used on this project. So I will support this project for those reasons. And as I've said, I fully support the Wandai project and I don't wish to cloud issues.
Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm voting against this resolution because I think that, as Councillor Shoemaker said, there's certainly a lot of people using the rail trail, but and they would love to come to our region, but they're smashing their vehicles across our region with potholes and damaging their vehicles, and it's a terrible look for our region to see the roads in such a state. And I hear about that other regions, our roads are the worst across wherever we go. And the other one is that the Resale budget, we were meant to do the gravel reshedding and then pick up on the reseals, but we've cut back on reseals. I've got figures. 2021, the budget changed. It was 3.7 million, it went to 1.6 million. 21-22, it was 3.2 million, and it went to 1.1 million. 22-23, it's earmarked from 3.5 million, changed to 2.3 million. So our reseals have suffered the whole way through, and some of that was for the KTP project. So I think that everybody's thinking that there's been a lot of money spent on the KTP. We now need to start to look, before we jump in and do George Street Car Park, we need to prioritise our roads across our region and some of those other projects that are absolutely imperative that are on that list already. Some of them that are workplace health and safety issues, issues with like the Gore Street one, with the school like wanting to have somewhere to park their cars. There's those projects we've already flagged as high, very, very high priority. And now we're jumping at one that hasn't been scoped. There's risk, certainly it may get done, but why would we jump in and do that when we've got all of these other projects, and plus we've got, as I said, just so many people smashing into us about our roads across our region. And I think I reflect the views of the whole region. If you did a survey, they'd say spend the money fixing the potholes and resealing and fixing up all of that mess, rather than doing what is probably, it needs to happen, but it's probably at this point something that is not absolutely imperative right now. The roads are to me, are the high priority, and I think I speak for the region. Thank you.
Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Now, a lot of this road damage we're talking about is actually storm damage. Now, I stand to be corrected, but we can't actually fix that until we've got the funding through. I'll actually go through you, Mr Mayor. Can we go to Acting Manager Jed with regards to the funding for some of those, or CO Mark? Yeah.
Sorry, thank you. Thanks, Councillor. So probably slightly different language I would use. It's not that we can't fix them until the funding. They're under active assessment. There is a declaration. I would be hesitant to give the value today because it's not finalised, but there will be. So there's the first stage of the works under the flood recovery or flood damage process is to make corridors trafficable and safe, and then the full restoration goes from there. So it's not necessarily about the funding, but it is in a process, certainly to make them safe and trafficable, and then get them assessed, and then go through the hoops to see if we can get some assistance from state or Commonwealth governments.
As a follow on that, is it possible to get a list of those roads so far that we've actually got on that list?
Through you, Mayor. Yes, it's developing though, because we've got teams of people out doing the two things as Mark explained. That's the defect pickup associated with the activation, and also to ensure that we undertake our emergent works in that first 90-day period.
Yeah, thank you, General Manager. Further speakers? Councillor Henshaw.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and welcome to the ladies of Wandai. I do offer my apologies for not turning up yesterday. I think it's the first WBNI Cross, perhaps maybe my second one, but because of previous commitments, I was not able to attend. But yeah, and as Councillor Potter and Councillor Shoemaker has alluded to, I just want to note, and we've just talked about it, that we've had a rain event that's been probably unsurpassed in the past 8 or 9 years, since 2013, and we've suffered some enormous damage. And thanks, Mr. CEO, for the clarification with how roads gets fixed, because I know as councillors we all get smashed as council may have been to a particular area and they've moved on and haven't done the job, and that's been explained as to why with insurance purposes. Certainly Wando has not been forgotten, and as Councillor Shoemaker, we have some wonderful projects going on down there with roundabout, Coronation Park and below Coronation Park where the free camps are, the showgrounds, Dingo Creek, Dingo Park, unfortunately, which is now non-existent, but again, that'll be an insurance job. And just to name a few, Industrial Avenue, and as Councillor Shoemaker has said, that $900,000 there is a great start and a stepping stone towards some wonderful improvements in the industrial estate down there. And hopefully, yes, and in time, stage 2 goes ahead, we can improve it even more so. Yeah, look, the George Street car park, it is a curly one. And my concern, and as the Mayor has alluded to, my motion is, do it once and do it well, and I'm certainly all for that. I guess my concern is, and with a lot of these projects, and it's a work in progress, that these things where we have an opportunity to do things relatively quickly and perhaps efficiently, what might that cost be us in the future, 12 months or 2 years down the track? And that's my concern. We've seen costs spiralling in the last 12 and 18 months, and the classic example in every facet of consumables that we're using in projects. And I'm sure Acting Manager Jed, you can only confirm that we've experienced some 20 and 32 and 40% increases on some of the things that we're having to acquire. So yeah, look, this is a curly one as far as I think the accessibility for the CBD and Kingaroy. It certainly complements it. That being said, certainly not going to show of anything else that's happening, not just in Wandai, but in every other town. And I've said this before. Every town's in desperate need of a lot of money spending on them. No more so than Wandai, and Mergen's had some great work done to it, but also our other little towns and villages in and around the South Burnett. Blackbutt's got some wonderful work happening. Nanango's had some wonderful work. Kingaroy's progressing along. It'll be a sensational thing when it's done. So, as Councillor Shoemaker alluded to, and Councillor Jones with the traffic, we have issues with the traffic going up, heavy traffic going up Harley Street, to be able to redirect that. The rail trail, there's some incredible statistics on that rail trail. It really is, and it's disappointing. The rail trail had some serious damage done to it. Recreational facilities, unfortunately, in some circumstances, come second fiddle to necessities with road transport and access for people. So, and as Councillor Duff alluded to only, I think, a week ago, we asked people to be a little patient with things that, because of the weather events we've had. And I just stress that again, we are flat out trying to get around the stuff that's been damaged, and of course there was damage beforehand, and our roads, our gravel roads, and Councillor Jones, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there was with the program with gravelling, and there was a 3-year program with gravelling, and then it was to transform to resealing. Would you mind just elaborating, or Acting Manager Jed, on that, where we're at with that? It's in the transformation stage where it goes to resealing, is that correct?
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Our current budget, of course, was set in your budget deliberations. So going back to your preparation of that, we considered a state of the roads position. In response to your question, you will again be presented with that state of the roads condition again in your budget considerations early in the new calendar year. So that will commence, to my understanding, almost immediately in the new calendar year. And you will also see the science upon which that is based. So that projects that forward commitment towards long-term maintenance of transport assets. So consistency in the long term with the objectives of the asset management plan for transport assets. And so that will again be presented to you to consider in your up and coming budget. So that will be for 22-23 onwards.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. Councillor Frodoff.
Thank you. Councillor Duff, if this was happening in Mergen, would you be fighting against this? I don't think so. Mayor Otto, you've stated of all the things around Kingaroy that needs to be done, all the roads around Mergen, Wondai, and everywhere around the South Burnett, except for Nanango. And that I missed out in Works for Queensland, and when the LRCI funding comes, I have some roads on the LRC funding that I will be fighting for. I'm not against George Street. I think it needs to be done. But it's a hard thing. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But I just want to let you know that I will be fighting for roads in my area with this LRCI funding. And I'd just like to know, Councillor Duff, if this was in Mergen, would you be fighting against it or would you be pushing it?
Councillor Duff.
I would be trying to be fair across our whole region, and that project that was in Mergen was the footpath. It got extended. We needed a bit of extra money, but certainly I've got projects in Mergen, and some of those projects in Mergen are certainly on that list that I'll be pushing for. So that's why, where's the money going to come from Nanango, for Nanango, if we spend another lot of money in Kingaroy? So we've got, I could go on, like we went from 9 million, went to 11 million, to 15 million. Like I think people think that there's been a lot of money spent on the KTP. We need to spread it around, absolutely. Some in Mergen, some in Nanango, some in Wondai, some in Geelong, right across our region. I think people would love to see that, rather than it looks to everybody like it's just all going to Kingaroy at this point. So I just think, for the good of the whole region, including Nanango and Mergen and Wondai, that we look at putting this particular George Street car park on hold for at least 12 months.
Thank you, Councillor Dove. I think you've answered the question. Okay, look, I'm just going to make up some summarising comments. Then we'll go to Councillor Jones for right of reply before we go to the vote. Okay, so I've listened to the arguments around the room. We are under, there is so many projects that we have to do. I'm certainly, I can hear everyone, I think everyone's in agreement that George Street car park does need to be done. If you go and have a look for yourself, people in the gallery, go and have a look, it is in a terrible mess, and people are parking up there in the mud, and it's not a good location. It needs to be done at some point in time. My concern is that we as a council, I suppose, speaking as an accountant, again, I know probably people don't like me saying that, but that's my profession, so my natural position is to go back to my skills and what I know as an accountant, as the finance portfolio holder for this council, and as the mayor for the region. I would hope that I look at the region holistically, not just focusing on Kingaroy, not just focusing on any town, even though I live here. I am concerned, council, at our financial position. I am concerned that if we don't use our external funding, councillors, for renewals, that we are going to really struggle to meet our 90% sustainability ratio into the future, particularly with the amount of work that's needed on our transport network. I am concerned. I haven't been advocating so much for the gravel roads because I know Councillor Jones has been doing that, and there's been a lot of work done over the last 3 to 4 years on our gravel roads. But I'm very concerned about the residential roads, particularly in Kingaroy. Appin Street, Nanango Ros, I didn't mention it, but I've had a look at it where it intersects with the main street, with Henry Street. We come down there, that's in an awful mess, that intersection there. It needs rehab. We can't just keep patching up the potholes. I looked at Tipperary Park on the weekend when I was at the fun run in Nanango. Oh my goodness, what a mess that's in. It was built by the previous council. It needs renewal. It's going to cost money. So many people use it. It's such a tremendous asset. It's the gateway to Nanango. And look, I went and had a look at it. And, there's white ants through all the timber. There's water that's laying there that's full of algae that people are having to drive through and walk through. It was a beautiful little heritage asset once that we've allowed to deteriorate because we haven't had the money to spend on renewals. And I think we should have that as a project. as well. But look, at the end of the day, I am concerned. In terms of economic benefit, I look at the roads, the trucks that come into Swickers use, Clark and Swenson, Redmonds. I look at First Avenue where the machinery operators are and Reiki Fuel. I look at River Road where Ken Mills is. You know, Ken Mills is a significant business for this region. I look at River Road and the traffic that has to go on River Road for that. I look at Kingaroy Freight and Kingaroy Hydraulics and the amount of money they bring into our region. Their road is all but buggered. We haven't got this in the budget. There is serious rehab work required. And councillors, I didn't go and see these roads or take these photos after the rain event, councillor. I went and looked at these roads 12 months ago. 12 months ago, before we had any rain, these roads were cracking, breaking up. The seals are broken. The water's getting in. And all the rain did is expose the problem. It simply exposed the problem. The seals are simply a membrane that protects the pavement. And when the seal goes, the pavement starts to deteriorate. And that's what we're seeing all over Kingaroy at the moment. We're seeing it in roads in Wondai. We're seeing it in roads in Nango. All across our region, there is pavement debilitation happening as a result of the importance of investing in reseals. I don't think, with our level of unfunded depreciation, that we are going to be able to afford to do that without using external funding. And this LRCI money, local roads, community infrastructure money, is a great opportunity for us to use that to get our sealed roads up to standard, particularly in our residential towns. If we don't use this money, I'm really concerned we're not going to have the money in our budget to do it, and we may have to borrow the money to do that critical reseal work, because we can't afford for our roads to become any more deteriorated, because the pavement work will cost so much more into the long term. That's why I'd like to see us take a more considered approach here, a more scientific approach. Let's just, calm the conversation. Let's take a step back, catch our breath. Let's work with Jed on the prioritisation tool and see where it all lands. But let's apply the prioritisation process to the $3.2 million and then feel comfortable that we've done the best we can to do it in a very careful and considered and appropriate manner. And that's all I'm asking. This project is included in that prioritisation process over coming months. I'll end there. Over to you, Councillor Jones, for right of reply. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And there's been some wonderful comments and good conversation. Just listening to you there in regards to the depreciation and all that sort of stuff, works for Queensland, the projects that we've already committed, singling out this one as, affecting our depreciation and all that sort of stuff, the projects that we've already committed to, they will all affect our depreciation and all that sort of stuff. Our Reseal project, now I believe as the roads portfolio, I think I can see a slight shift, and Mr Jed might be able to confirm that it's starting to shift across from that gravel maintenance work and all that sort of stuff to the Reseal. The figures that Councillor Duff quoted, yes, they've been given to us and on RFIs and all that sort of stuff. They are guides. We, as a group of councillors, can go to the budget meetings coming up before the next budget and change that and reverse those figures. Those figures then show Reseal money going higher than the gravel regime. They are guidelines only. And I'll use the Mayor's comments. We've had conversation. He said, yeah, okay, we put a budget together, we do all that sort of stuff. They're a guide. If we have our reviews and all that sort of stuff, we're able to change that. That's correct. So we have the option. That is not set in stone. That is not set in stone. They are guidelines that have been put together by our staff. So as a group of councillors, we can come to the next budget discussions and put $5 million in the Reseal. Now, the comments around LRCI and not doing any of this or this project here, that to me cans the project in Wondai, because we're not going to put any there. We're going to put it all into the roads. So therefore, we lose the option of doing the footpaths. I'm fully supportive of Wondai. Always have been. Right, there's some wonderful work going down there, and I don't want to spend too much time talking about Wondai and all that sort of stuff, but I fully support the Wondai project. Councillor Shoemaker alluded to the fact that we've put money aside and allocated it in the outcoming budgets, and again, we can change all that around, but so fully supportive of Wondai, completely supportive across the region. I've supported Blackbutt, I've supported Kingaroy KTP, I've supported the Mergen QE2 Park, I've supported Wondai, I've supported Proston. right? It just seems to me that every now and then, if I support something in Kingaroy, just me personally, I'm talking about myself personally, I get attacked on social media because I'm putting all the money into Kingaroy or whatever. I can't justify it. Well, I can. I believe this is a significant infrastructure project for the region, not just Kingaroy. That's why I brought it back, and that's why I'd like to see it. I'm fully supportive of it. So whatever happens today, whatever the decision in this chamber is, I will fully respect what's going on. If it gets defeated, I won't carry on about it. I'll just accept it. But I brought it forward because I'm very passionate about the fact that this needs to be done. I can see the significance of it. We can go to the next budget. We can work out our gravel road network. We can work out our Reseal program. We can adjust that accordingly. That was always in the motion, Mr. Acting GM. The fact that we do that 3 or 4 years and we progress across the Seal network. I believe it's starting to happen this year and it will continue to happen. And I refer back to the comments I made. Those figures that you've quoted, Councillor Duff, are guide only and we can change them accordingly. If this council decides that the Reseal project next year is significantly higher than anything else, we can put that money in there and fix that up. So that's the reasons for this motion, and I put it forward to the council and I will be voting for it, and whatever decision happens here today, I will fully respect the decision of the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. That concludes the debate. We'll now go to the vote. Those in favour? Okay, we have Councillor Jones, Councillor Potter, Councillor Froloff and Councillor Shoemaker. Those against? Councillor Duff, Councillor Henson and Councillor Otto. Thank you, Lynelle. Okay, the motion has been carried, 4 votes to 3. Thank you all. Now, we do have to break at 10:15, so we'll move on to the next one before doing so. 9.3 is Notice of Motion, Development Incentive Scheme Extension at 134. And the, get that up. Okay, so I'd like to move a motion that Council extend the Development Incentive Scheme applying to the LGIP charges to 31 December 2023. Projects that have commenced by this date will be eligible under the scheme. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Duff. Okay, I'll just quickly speak to the motion. I have received a number of approaches by particularly probably the local building industry, construction industry, saying that the scheme's running out in June 22. That's coming upon them quickly. They're really struggling to be able to get access to enough land moving forward. They're also concerned about the time it's taking to build properties with access to materials and contractors. So with what's happened over the last 12 months, which of course we couldn't have foreseen, there has been, I suppose, I think that there is, what we're hearing is that we're expecting that the construction industry will continue to do well for the next couple of years. That's certainly what I'm hearing from the local builders, and that they would like to see this scheme carried through to be able to, I suppose, keep the wind behind the sails of the development, the construction that's happening around our region at the moment. It is happening right across the region. You know, there's houses being built not just in Kingaroy but in Nango. There's houses being built in Wandai at the moment. I know Mergen hasn't got any land, so that's been a problem down there. And of course Blackbutt. I mean, Blackbutt's just growing exponentially at the moment. So, look, it's something that's come forward from the industry. So I'd put it forward, and really keen to hear council's views on that. So, any further speakers? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm fully supportive of this motion. I certainly agree. I think we have industry screaming out at us at the moment. There are jobs in our region and unfortunately no place for anyone to live. And I think the goal of this incentive scheme has always been to grow our population, and it was on the back of, before COVID, we had a declining population. I look forward to new statistics when the census data is revealed, and certainly any other data we can get our hands on in terms of the actual growth in our region, because you're absolutely right, we are starting to see bricks and mortar in the pipeline. I guess what I am hearing on the ground is that certainly our team here, our development team, are under pressure. There is genuine interest in our region. The developers are certainly under pressure to deliver, and there are challenges. Getting cash from the bank to invest in development these days is much different to what it was back in the very early days of development in our region. So I think we have, as a region, a very short time frame and opportunity to grow. And what I've seen in my 18 months of council is that we're very much landlocked. We have developers who have been sitting on large pieces of land. This is council saying, all right, we've got skin in the game, we're putting money on the table, where's your contribution? Because quite frankly, I'm getting quite tired of every conversation I've had with industry around the fact that this council is either A, too difficult to deal with, or B, not supporting growth of our region. That is incorrect. This development incentive scheme is actually helping put shovels in the ground. And what we've seen in areas like Summit View, areas that have sat there with long grass and nothing happening on them for years, are finally being progressed. We will have people living in houses there. Isn't that a wonderful outcome? I know the time frame is certainly a challenge, and I think extending this time frame really does enable more growth. It's been wonderful to see the material changes of use come through and the subdivision of lots in town. We need that infill development. We're running out of land, so if there's an opportunity for somebody who's already living on a lot of land in any of our towns that's quite large, to subdivide that and to build another house, I think is wonderful. I also think those unit developments are really important for industry in the area. So my view is that this development incentive scheme is crucial to supporting residential housing outcomes. And I know later in the report there's some information and I will be challenging that, because I believe residential housing outcomes need to be a priority for our region at this point in time. I know it comes with risk, but I think we need to be bold if we're to grow our region and to dig ourselves out of some of the challenges, and certainly on the back of the discussion we've had, the financial challenges we face. We need growth, and I fully support this development incentive scheme. Thank you.
Further speakers? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I agree. I'm 100% supportive of this. I think that now is an opportunity to, because everybody's looking at our region, they're looking to come here because of, particularly with COVID, people want to get out into these less populated areas. It's been a good scheme, but it needs more time to get the word out there and to capitalise on the opportunities that we have now with, as Councillor Shoemaker said, to create some incentive. And so, yeah, 100% supportive of this. Thank you.
Okay, any further speakers for the comments? Councillor Jones.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just a couple of questions. So we've got it currently until the end of June. So if there was a developer comes in and lodges a application, would they be eligible if they haven't started the work, if they lodge before 30th of June?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so the way the scheme is set up is if they make applications, so if they lodge a development application, say in May, issued the development approval, we issue an infrastructure charges notice, which has got the full charges on it. Then we apply the development incentive. If they make application prior to June, they're given 12 months to complete that application. So they would actually, as long as they make application, then that gives them 12 months to complete the development. So as long as they've made application by 30 of June 22nd and complete it within that 12 months, so they've got 12 months from the date of the agreement, which provides the discount on their infrastructure charges. If they don't complete it in that time, that infrastructure, that 12-month agreement goes by the wayside and the full charges remain on the development.
Thanks, GM. Mr Mayor, just so with the incentive scheme, if I'm a developer and I come in and I do it all and a set figure is set, where So the fees, the incentive scheme that amount of money is given to the developer, where does council get that money from to cover the costs of that, all that infrastructure, headworks, all that sort of stuff?
So yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. So there'll be decisions for council in the future of where that say shortfall in infrastructure charges come from. So that will need to come from rates or future borrowings because basically those charges are collected to for the capacity that's taken out of the system. So that will be a decision of council where that's come from.
Thank you. So I stand here a bit hypocritical, Mr Mayor, and I will confess that because I have always questioned this simply on the fact that the ratepayer basically has to foot the bill to get incentives. And I totally agree with Councillor Shoemaker. The best way to control your rate rises and all that sort of stuff is have more people in the region to share it. But it also comes at a cost to the ratepayer. Now, the conversations that we've already had this morning indicates that we've got a tight budget, we need to do this, we need to do that, there's all sorts of options, and we've got to work very hard for the next 3 budgets we have to put together. Now, I didn't oppose it, I questioned it all the way through. I listened to the arguments around the room from all the other councillors that are in favour of it, and I voted for it to give it a go and all the rest of it on the proviso that it's happened. Now, the land shortage that's currently there, now that land shortage, how has that been, have we got, like, I believe that there's areas out there that are ready to develop, but for whatever reason, they still haven't made application, or they're coming up, like Councillor Shoemaker says, oh, council this, council that. I believe that the council staff are doing everything they possibly can to get this and encourage this incentive scheme. I can't believe that if anybody's out there with land in this current climate, with real estate the way it is, why they haven't taken up that option. So I've given it a go for the first 6 months, and I reluctantly will agree to do this again. But I want to make my points clear that I have had concerns, and I still have concerns about budgetary implications and all that sort of stuff. But I will support this because I've supported the last one up until the 30th of June, and I will give it a 6-month extension. If we require to go forward, and I haven't seen any major, construction around the region, I will be seriously considering about changing the way I vote. But I will support this today. Thank you.
Okay, further speakers? All right, we'll just, I'll just write a reply. And as I've said, I am concerned about our finances moving forward, but in this particular case, sometimes you have to invest to get a return on the investment. And I think council if this is an investment by council, I don't think it's a cost, it's an investment. Now, at the moment, a residential allotment is $20,800 approximately in LGIP charges per lot, roughly. Correct me if I'm wrong here, GM. The 75% discount brings that back to $5,000. So that's $15,000 investment per allotment by council. Now, if we get a house built on that block, we can then collect the access fee for water, which goes towards provision of future infrastructure, water infrastructure. We can collect the sewerage fee, the wastewater fee, which goes towards additional infrastructure. We start to collect general rates, which helps cover our operating costs of council. So for every 10 properties that we collect 10 lots of those, for example. So I think it's an investment. My calculations are that we're actually setting up future council for success because we're growing the number of people that we're spreading the cost across. And we'll actually provide a revenue stream. One of the real issues we've got, as you've highlighted, we just don't have enough rateable properties to cover the costs of delivering the services across the region. And if we can grow, particularly our main towns across the region where the demand is right now, we can actually set the future councils up for success because they're going to have a greater revenue stream that comes, and it goes to the water. It goes to wastewater. It goes to the fees that we charge for general rates, which helps our general operating costs of running our council behind the scenes. So I do believe this is a cost. I believe it's an investment, and for that reason, I'm supporting our construction industry to continue to grow. Okay, so I'll leave it at that. We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, Council, I'll now move that we close the meeting. We adjourn for morning tea at 10:14 a.m. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Henson, thank you. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Henson. Councillor Henson always seconds those. Thank you all. Okay, I'll now move that we resume the meeting. 10:57 a.m. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Okay, now 10.1, meeting dates for the ordinary meetings of council, standing committee meetings and general meetings at 1:41. And the recommendation is as presented. For the meetings for the period 1 January 2022 to 30 June 2022. Do we have a mover? Councillor Henson, seconder Councillor Jones. Speakers, those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. 10.2 at 1:43, council's dealing with confidential information policy, statutory 060, 143, has been discussed at the standing committee meeting and from which the recommendation is the South Burnett Regional Council dealing with confidential information policy, statutory 060 be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover? Councillor Froloff, seconder Councillor Potter. Speakers? Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 10.3 at 1:51. Standing committee discussion. Recommendation from that is the South Burnett Regional Council demolish, remove or relocate buildings policy, strategic 024 be adopted as presented. Mover, Councillor Jones, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Potter. Speakers, those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. That's 10.3. We're up to 10.4 at 1:56, and from the Standing Committee, it's been recommended that the South Burnett Regional Council Sundry Debtors Recovery and Refund Policy, statutory 058, be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconder Councillor Froloff. Speakers, those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. 10.5 is the monthly financial report. That's at page 161, and the recommendation is that the monthly financial report, including capital works and works for Queensland, as at 30 November 2021, be received and noted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconder. Councillor Potter. Okay, are there any speakers? Okay, we'll go to the vote. Sorry, Councillor Shoemaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had just made a couple of notes. Page 169 talks about our fees and charges tracking above target, largely, of course, because of the emergency management levies, as well as an increase in the number of rate searches, and the planning and land management team has seen an increase in building and development applications. Certainly understand the pressure on housing, sales and construction at the moment, and just wanted to understand, are we, with the way in which we're tracking, are we comfortable we're resourced to deliver the applications, planning and building applications within the statutory timeframes, as well as the rate searches, and do we need to consider taking a deeper dive on this revenue to sort of understand our current level of resourcing and if there are needs for further support. So it's probably a question for GM Susan and GM O'May in those two areas.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. Yes, the rate searches are unprecedented, to be perfectly honest, and we have moved resources over specifically to address the rates searches, and there again, it is generating a lot of revenue there that we hadn't budgeted for, which is yes. So we're reviewing actually our fee structure there going into next financial year. As far as due to the applications for rate searches, we've had to have a lot of what we class as emergency water meter readings. So that impacts on the services there from the water officers where they have to go and actually do the reading so that we can give that information to the solicitors within a 24-hour time frame. So we'll be looking at a fee structure to reflect the costs to council that we're not currently recouping. So that will go into next year's budget. But as such, yes, at the moment, the rates department is very, very busy. But a positive side of it is that we've got strategies in place there that we're looking at to reduce the actual resources or the burden of the officers there by fine-tuning a lot of processes there that we're currently under review. So we're looking forward to bringing that back to council and delivering that to council as well. So thank you. But no, we're coping at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. General Manager O'May, anything further on that?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, so similar to the last 6 months, planning and building areas have certainly been above average, particularly even with the sale of houses. So those searches certainly adds a lot of pressure because they're doing similar to the rate searches, building record searches, so that adds to the workload in the building. We have had an additional certifier or technical officer on board there assisting, also supported by a private certifier who provides us that backup. Unfortunately, we've just lost the backup where we were basically in the throes of getting a permanent position on board there. But, had a parting of the ways this last week, so that was a bit disappointing. But so we've retained the services of the private certifier that we've been using to add that support. And in the planning space, we are we've got the acting manager in place. We're probably keen to have a real look at this as part of the restructure. So that's one of the positions, the manager of planning and land management, that is currently vacant. So we've got the acting manager. So probably in the new year we do need to look. We are again being supplemented, relying on our consultant planners for the overflow work and even looking at the CRM. So the team are busy and putting in a huge effort, but there is a demand there, and that overflow we are outsourcing to contractors.
Yeah, thank you for that summary and that update. I definitely think that's an area in the early new year, if there's anything that council can do in terms of as part of our budget review, allocate some of this increased revenue to actually increase resources. But certainly I share empathy with you, GM O'May, in terms of I know how hard your team had worked on that additional certifier, and it's sad to hear that was so close and yet didn't quite come off. So thank you. Just recognise the pressure on everybody at the moment and the opportunity for growth, and don't want to miss it. So if we're raising that extra revenue, we need to hit up to deliver on those outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. Okay. Anything further from councillors? Go to the vote. Those in favour, carry unanimously. Thank you all. Now, Council, with the leave of the meeting, we have a letter to which I referred previously, which has come from the Queensland Local Government Grants Commission. I'd like to now refer to Mr. CEO. Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. With the correspondence, with the leave of the meeting, whilst it is tied to the financial report, so it is in compliance with Council's meeting procedures, that it has a relationship to an agenda item. This matter only came to our attention yesterday as the correspondence came through from the President of the Grants Commission, or Chairperson, sorry, of the Grants Commission, to correspondence to the Mayor, and we've had no previous contact that we're aware of. Would very much appreciate a procedural motion to allow the financial assistance grants to be discussed and this letter be tabled. That'll put the letter into the public domain. So that would be a procedural motion that the matter can be discussed and the letter be tabled. And then what I would be seeking is I'm hoping to would like to write back to both the President of the Grants Commission and the current state government, and we can get into the detail, but it would be very nice to have a council resolution behind that to uniformly express our disappointment in this, and I'll explain fully once if leave councillors to discuss.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. I'd now like to move a procedural resolution in accordance with our CEO's statements. First of all, that procedural resolution that the review outcome from the Queensland Local Government Grants Commission be discussed at this ordinary meeting of council, and that the letter dated 6 December 2021 advising of such be tabled at this ordinary meeting. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Jones. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. CEO. We now have the matter to be addressed. Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Thanks, Mayor. So by correspondence council's received, council participated in the renewal of the financial assistance grant, and as it details in the correspondence, it's been 10 years since the grant allocation methodology was last reviewed by the Grants Commission. So they've gone through, and there's a myriad of information about the review and how it is and the outcome is, and we've only got a set pool of money, and I'll cut to the quick with this. Generally, the financial assistance grants has been a pool, so they've based it on several factors. For winners, there's got to be losers, and some councils would go up and some councils will go down, and it was just well, I would say just but the general conversation, the average loss of rates average loss of financial grants would be 2%, possibly true, probably true, as far as when you look at the pool. But where it becomes real is, so there's several key factors. Where I'm going is we have been placed on the list of the 27 councils that will decline. There will be 50 councils that will get an increased allocation and 27 will not. There are several key factors within the new grant allocation methodology that contribute to the decreased allocations for councils. These include reduced sensitivity of the model to road network input data, which I'm not quite yet sure what that means. Removal of capping, under which the former model did not allow sufficiently effective funding allocations changes over time, and increased focus on council's capacity to raise revenue. Now, the only one of those three that makes any sense really is that we obviously have been deemed a council that can raise more revenue than other councils. So the onus of this will fall back upon our residents and ratepayers to cover the gap. We've been advised that there will be approximately 7% over the 22-23 financial year, and the same amount will be deducted over the 23, 24 and 25 financial years. That'll be 21%. 7% this year coming would equate to about $499,000 for us, or might as well say $500,000. So that will be 3 years in a row. And then you lose inflation as well. So even with wage rise at 2.5%, or CPI, let's say it's 2.5%, 3%. So 7% off the fags, and then we lose another 3% inflation impact. So Mayor's opening comments earlier about the possible impact for this over 3 years will be $2 million is not far off the mark. Certainly $1.5 million in pure dollar terms, not taking into any compounding factors like inflation. The other impact, which is when we bring the second quarter review back in the new year, there will be an impact on this year's budget. So we've just lost $142,000 out of this year's budget. Suffice to say, I was very cross, would be an understatement, as I'm sure everyone is. I would have expected the courtesy of a call. I would have expected, as pure manners and process, that the affected councils would have been advised prior to this about this is what we're thinking, what your response. In most processes, there's a sage to have this just dropped on council and the community without any other advice. And it's a lovely letter, and there's all the platitudes in it, and we're looking after the grader. My concern is that this methodology there's 50% of councils in Queensland that have been deemed unsustainable, which we're not on the list. Now, there's a range of issues with that, and I don't even wish to entertain or engage in that discussion. Each council is unique. Each council has got a body corporate that makes the decision, being the elected members in an organisation in each council. There has been no, and it's been an issue that I've canvassed for a very long time, there's no preactive mechanism available in the state that I've ever been able to come across stopping a council sliding down the path. Everything is reactive once a council's in a difficult position. It's not just us. Now, if I believe the media reports, the Courier Mail from yesterday, Bundaberg and Fraser Coast went yesterday. Bundaberg is talking about a 70% loss of its financial assistance grant over the next 3 years. Toowoomba, Rockhampton, Fraser Coast, Bundaberg. Now, the only commonality that I've come across is that they're all the regional councils, they're all the amalgamated councils. There was a guarantee at amalgamation the councils wouldn't lose, we would not lose any amalgamated councils, and having been working in amalgamated councils since 2008, that we would be maintained, and they did. There was a moratorium at the time, so the first 2-3 years, the level of financial assistance grant was maintained at the pre-amalgamation level. Then after that, there's been a series of reasons, and this is probably the depth of feeling that if it's coming across as to why this is so wrong. It's they actually started to move, and there's been every excuse given under the sun for an amalgamated council to lose FAG grants. It's been road length, it's been incorrect data input, there's always an excuse as to why the amalgamated councils and the community, it wasn't, and without, it's not so much the amalgamation, okay, there's pros and cons and people argue that for a long time, no doubt. The loss of grant revenue from various mechanisms and various programs, including the financial assistance grant, really made it difficult for the amalgamated councils to maintain their position pre-amalgamation. There was more money being poured in. Now, that's an opinion, and that will be disputed at levels in government and the Grants Commission. I accept that. I've argued it for a long period of time. But as my sincere recommendation to council is that we write to the President of the Grants Commission, and I'll throw it to the Mayor for actions he's undertaken this morning since being made aware of this. But we cannot accept this, and we should not accept this.
Thank you for that very comprehensive explanation, Mr. CEO. Much appreciated. And thank you for bringing this to the attention of council here today. Very, very concerning. I'd now like to, in accordance with the recommendation of our CEO, move a motion that South Bennett Regional Council write to the chairperson of the Queensland Local Government Grants Commission and the Queensland Government's Minister for Local Government, expressing our concerns and the significant impact the new grant allocation methodology, as communicated, will have on the sustainability of our region. Do I have a seconder for such? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you. My opening comments are as follows, and media, please feel free to quote me on this. I am highly disappointed at A, the process by which this review has been conducted. B, the outcome of this review. Not only am I disappointed, but I am completely bemused and confused as to how a 7% reduction in FAG's grants can be justifiably applied to a rural regional council that has been dealing with drought for some 40 years, that has done everything asked of us in terms of financial sustainability, in terms of asset management and sustainability. This council has worked very hard to balance its budget, deliver its services in an increasingly challenging environment. And it seems to me that we are being disadvantaged because of that. In fact, punished because of the fact that we have worked really hard, have put our shoulder to the wheel, have done the heavy lifting on financial sustainability on our own bat. Now, we have not asked for an increase to the FAGS grants. We have simply asked that they be held at the level that we have been receiving over many years. And our FAGS grants have reduced. When one applies the time value of money, to inflation, to the FAGS grants, that reduction becomes very clear. To now apply another reduction, to rip $2 million out of our budget over the next 3 years, is simply punishing our council for doing what the government has asked us to do. We've done the right thing. We should not be punished and disadvantaged for that. I'm extremely disappointed at this outcome, and I would commend the motion to this council that we write to the chairperson, we write to the minister, expressing our concern at the way the process was conducted. I was not consulted as the mayor or the finance portfolio holder. There was no opportunity for us to provide feedback to this recommendation. This has been slapped on us at the 11th hour without appropriate consultation. It is simply not good enough, and I would commend to this chamber that we write to the chairperson expressing concerns about the process and about the outcome and about the impact it's going to have on the good, hard-working people of our rural region, and that we express those same concerns to Minister Miles and seek government intervention to correct this as a matter of priority. Thank you. Further speakers, Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I fully agree and fully support this motion. As you can see on page 189 of the council meeting agenda, our ratepayers are doing the heavy lifting here in our council, contributing 58% of our cash inflows. Rates and subsidies make up for 7%. So what our government actually attributes to our operations is a very, very minor amount. This is absolute hogwash to be given a letter, to be given this letter, when our ratepayers are doing the heavy lifting, and in reference to the other councils who have received the same letter. Toowoomba Regional Council has a population of 135,000 people. Rockhampton has a population of 86,000 people. Fraser Coast, 138,000 people. Bundaberg, 96,000 people. The South Burnett, 32,500 people. There is no way we can make up this shortfall in our budget. And what this will come back to is actually impacting the services we provide, impacting the livability of our lives here in the South Burnett, impacting on our ability to fund core key infrastructure that every person, regardless of where you live in Australia, is entitled to. So I fully support this recommendation, and to be quite honest, I would like this Grants Commissioner and the Minister to actually get off their backsides in their fancy offices and actually get out into a region like ours, to sit in a room with people like us and to have a look around. We have got things failing left, right and centre. How dare they come and make a decision like this? It is absolutely appalling, and I fully support the recommendation, and I would like to be kept informed about this, Mr. Mayor. So my expectation of this is that a report would be coming back to council. And to be quite honest, I would like to see all 7 of us storm those people's offices in Brisbane with our budget and say, here, mate, there you go. You make that work. You tell me about it. How are we going to do this? Because far out, I am out of ideas. Absolutely appalling. Fully support that letter. And I would like to see the 7 of us go to Brisbane and express the views of our region. It's mildly, hugely disproportionate.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Councillor Duff.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I just think we can't stand this financial shock. Like, it's going to affect this budget, it's going to affect the next budget. We're already struggling, we're already running an operating deficit. how are we meant to manage this? This is just, it's not right, it's not fair, and also there's been no opportunity for us to negotiate, to argue, to put forward a case. I just think it's wrong. I 100% agree with Councillor Shoemaker, and the Mayor is just on the back of all of our challenges and struggles, and like the Mayor said, it seems like we're being punished for having really, really, like sweated our assets, worked as hard as we possibly could to try and balance our books, and now we get shot for doing this. Like, it's not right, and so 100% support, and I'm keen, absolutely, march on them and just say, because enough is enough. Our ratepayers can't stand this anymore. It's just beyond a joke. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Further councillors? Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. 100% agree with everything that's been said. Sorry, I'm not as surprised as others. I've been suspecting this. The LGAQ, ever since I've been in council, has been lobbying the federal government for an increase and holding the FAGS grants as they were. We've addressed it. They fought the fight, the fair battle, and it just, nothing was ever come. So I totally agree. Fully support your motion. I fully support every comment that's here, but it's no surprise to me that this has come. They've always just put it back, and there was never an outcome. Every time the LGAQ, every time we go to an ALGA conference, every time you go to an LGAQ conference, top of the list, fight to get PAGS grants at least held at what they are or increased by 1%. Never happened, and that's 5 years I've been involved, and it's crap. It's absolute rubbish. It's absolute rubbish. Fully support it. Do what you want to do. If you want to go down and march on more, let's bang on the door and go down and have a bit of team building, eh? Let's get down there and into them.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Further councillors? Look, I'll just wrap this up by saying in the 21-22 year, the federal government increased Queensland's allocation by 5.8%. We didn't get 1 cent of that in this current financial year. The total funding allocation was $532 million. I'm not sure where that extra 5.8% went. We certainly didn't see any of it. On the back of that, we're now facing what to our ratepayers will mean a 5% general rate rise in 22-23. When one applies inflation, and we know what's happening with inflation at the moment with the cost of services, 6%, 23-24, possibly 7%, 24-25, to simply get us back to where we are now. And we are currently in a deficit of $3 million, and we are working our butts off to find a pathway out of deficit and to get our budget rebalanced. The depreciation costs that this council faces alone make it very challenging for us. We have, as regional councils, continued to take on the role of state government in delivering services across our region in a whole range of areas. Local disaster management is one of those, where we have to resource that with our staff, with our councillors, to lead the local disaster management group. We're now picking up the ball and leading social housing issues around our region, mental health, suicide prevention. These weren't the things that councils had to do once upon a time. They dealt with rates, rubbish, roads, rates and rubbish. We deal with so much now that once upon a time was dealt with by state government. We are being asked to do more with less, and that is unreasonable, and it is completely unfair to the residents of our region. So I'll wrap up there. We'll go to the vote. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all, and thank you, councillors, for your passionate support for this, addressing this matter, and quite happy to see us invite the chairperson of this commission to come and meet with this council and to come and meet with our community and travel through our community and just see the impact it's going to have firsthand. Okay, let's move on.
Mr. Mayor,
Councillor Shoemaker, thank you.
I'd like to move a motion. Linnell, if you can just roll up. But further to the Mayor's motion, so that South Burnett Regional Council request an urgent meeting with the Queensland Local Government Grants Commission and the Queensland Government Minister for Local Government with all councillors to openly discuss and table our concerns regarding the new grant allocation methodology. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Potter here. Okay, speakers, Councillor Shoemaker. Thank you.
Yes, I can't get my light off. Absolutely, I agree with the letter. I do not think that's a strong enough approach, and I do think all 7 of us actually need to go. Look, the likelihood of them coming to us is very slim. They certainly haven't picked up the phone before. And I would like to see us go and actually genuinely try to meet with these people, because honestly, whatever they're being told in their ivory towers isn't a true reflection of regional Queensland and regions like ours. I think just a statement of actually requesting that urgent meeting and certainly turning up, surely, hopefully, they may actually take our concerns seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Further speakers? I would just like to add that being made aware of this morning before the meeting, I immediately got on the phone. I have reached out and made my concerns, asked for my concerns, serious concerns, to be expressed to the chairperson, Paul Bell, to Stephen Miles, the Minister, and also to the CEO of the LGAQ. We need to, as LGAQ needs to, as I'm sure they will, come forward and represent all these affected councils strongly with government. I would like to support this motion. Sunshine Coast, not sure.
Thanks, Mayor. The problem that I have is with being advised like this, we're just now scrambling for information. The ones that I'm aware of are the only ones that I've seen react in the media. So I've started pulling down this morning, and again, only becoming aware of it yesterday afternoon. It just came through the mail, good old snail mail, which is a great thing. Good to see the government supporting Australia Post. And like going through the task list yesterday afternoon, the staff had printed it out and left it in the folder, and I'm going through, what's this? And you go, wow. So yeah, no, I just don't know yet who else, but there's 27. So the correspondence indicates there's, well, and the website, there's 50 being 50 improved and 27 being adversely affected out of the 77 councils in Queensland. So I'm sure there'll be more to this space coming.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. CEO. So highly unfair for us to be one of those 27 as a rural regional council that's been doing the right thing, battling drought, battling all the other issues we've had to deal with. Okay, Councillor Shoemaker, right of reply before we go to the vote? Wrap up? Nope, nothing. We'll go straight to the vote. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. Mr. CEO, we'd appreciate you enacting those resolutions as a matter of priority. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to 10.6, which is at 205, and that is Councillor Duff. Did you have your light on? Are you right? Sorry? Oh, Councillor Frodoff. Thank you, Ross. Councillor Frodoff's leaving the meeting. COVID vaccination mandates and position of council. That's at 205. Okay. Right, well, we have the officer's recommendation there. So this was discussed extensively at the Standing Committee meeting last week, and from that, the committee has recommended that Council issue a public statement and media release advising that the South Burnett Regional Council will continue to support the COVID vaccination rollout throughout the region, that we acknowledge the rights of our residents to freedom of choice as to COVID vaccination, that mandate restrictions are a matter for Queensland Health and the state government, that we will provide support to Queensland Health where and as we can to ensure our local hospitals and health services are prepared when the borders open. We will continue to support our local small businesses as we can to address the impacts of the ongoing pandemic, including the impacts from the restrictions mandated by the Queensland Government. And following consultation with affected local small businesses, we write to the Premier no later than 13 December 2021 to express the views of our business community and seek any support and assistance they feel is necessary to meet their obligations. So we'll need to get a motion up here. That's the recommendation. We've got two lights on. Councillor Potter, I might go to you first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'd actually like to move a motion that we write a letter to the Premier, because with regards to the mandates, and there are businesses around town that are doing a lot with regards to the mandates, and they're putting in panic buttons and everything like that for their staff. And is the Queensland Government going to pay for that? Are they going to reimburse these businesses that have to put on extra staff for security, that have to put in these panic buttons because they're concerned about their own staff's safety? So the letter we write to state government has to be quite pointed and we have to be straight to the point, because I don't think it's fair on local businesses to have to pay to have these particular things in place because of the mandate that they've put in place.
Thank you, Councillor. So you'd be seeking a compensation scheme where they could apply for assistance funding for those additional costs that they're incurring? Okay, yeah, well, that could certainly be built into this motion. At point 6 there, of course, we've got there that we write to the Premier. That we didn't send that letter on the 13th because after speaking with the businesses, I know the Mergen meeting, the businesses came back and said to us, well, give us a chance to trial it for a couple of weeks once it comes in after the 7th December, see how it goes, and then we'll come back to you and let you know the issues it's creating for us, so we can make sure that what we say to the Premier is going to be as a result of our experiences. So we took that advice on board. Probably didn't get a chance so much with the Kingaroy workshop to get that feedback from the businesses that attended that one. So at this point in time, we don't really have a lot of information as to what the businesses are saying they would like us to express, but certainly we can put that forward as part of the motion if you choose to, Councillor Potter. Yeah, so that being the case, Councillor, the first 5 items you're suggesting as is, but that item 6, we changed that to write to the Premier seeking assistance for our small businesses who have been charged with the responsibility for implementing. Okay. Can we just perhaps then change that, Linnell? Take the date out? Yes. So I might just get your guidance there, Councillor Potter, as to making sure that item 6 does reflect your intent. Yeah.
Because of the mandates and the way that they're stopping the rest of the community going in. So I really think we need to write in something there.
So seeking financial assistance?
Definitely.
Seeking a financial assistance for affected businesses and community groups?
Yes.
Okay. And if we just full stop that, Linnell, and then take out the rest. Okay. You happy with that, Councillor Potter, those 6 items as presented? Feel free to add more if you want to. Yeah, well, we could certainly we could certainly have that letter brought back to council to review prior to sending, Mr. CEO, as part of our process, couldn't we? That would be the mechanics, I'd imagine, of the process. So if you're comfortable with that, yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you'd like it, but you'd like it, yeah, it can be shared with all councillors for feedback one-on-one prior to sending. Yep.
Yes.
I didn't mean back to a council meeting, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. CEO, as part of the process, would consult with all the councillors and seek your input and your prior to finalising the letter. Happy with that, Mr. CEO?
Yeah, certainly, Mayor, and we have done that with the other way through with this. And last night I sent out a very well, I call it a rudimentary, but a first draft of a media release. So again, feedback is more than welcome.
So we have the motion as presented there, moved by Councillor Potter. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Duff, thank you. Okay. Councillor Potter, would you like to speak further to that? I know it's challenging with your illness at the moment, but yeah. Thank you, Councillor. Further speakers? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yeah, I absolutely agree and support this motion as discussed at the committee meeting last week. I am fully supportive of writing to our Premier, and certainly after the business meeting that I did attend in Kingaroy on Friday, I have even more concerns about the confusion around the mandates and how they are going to play out in our community. I also have great sympathy and empathy for our local police staff who are busy enough and do not need the pressure of telling good, hardworking citizens of our region what's right and what's wrong. And I certainly respect their approach and am grateful for their approach. But my ultimate concern is the well-being of my community. And whilst I don't have the health data, and this council doesn't have any jurisdiction in terms of public health orders, we do have a huge role to play in supporting our community during this period, to listening to them and to working together and somehow trying to unite in what is a very testing time for everybody. I've read every email that I've received. Every email that I've received has varied, as they have in your inboxes, and the views of our community for vaccination, against vaccination, for mandates, against mandates, they differ. What I know is that just as we have done for these last 2 years, it is so important that we don't divide our community, that we work together, we work through the problems that are on the table and support each other through that with respect. I've never lived through a pandemic before. It's certainly not easy. Fully supportive of this motion. I think it's important that the Queensland Government understands the views of our regional community and that we write directly to the Premier. And I certainly support the substance of this motion. So I have no further comments in relation to this. I spoke to this extensively in the committee meeting. My view is, of course, that vaccination is important in our community, and if you can, I certainly support our residents to get vaccinated. I hold grave concerns around what our next 6 to 12 months look like in the South Burnett, particularly when we've got a 40% proportion of our population who are at risk, who are elderly or people with disabilities. I am terrified. I know I have relatives who are vaccinated and who will not leave their homes. They are terrified that they're going to catch COVID. I know from the numbers that have come through in the reports today for Brisbane that we are recording cases and that we are going to have to learn to live with this thing. And all I can think of is to just try to be kind to each other and try to stick together despite our differences of opinion and work through this. Certainly unite as a region to do the best we can by each other. So they're my views. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Duff.
Sorry. I 100% support Councillor Potter and Councillor Shoemaker. I know that we talked about this extensively at the committee meeting. I think that we continue to support the COVID vaccination rollout, that we acknowledge the rights of our residents to freedom of choice. The mandated restrictions are a matter for Queensland Health and the state government. That's caused a lot of confusion. I know that there's councils have been putting out that they're not putting mandates in their council. We're not either. This council, the CEO, we haven't been directed by Queensland Health to put mandates on. But I know that some of the councils are getting accolades because they're saying they're not putting mandates, but our council's not either. It's just we're following the direction of Queensland Health. So that's all we can do. That's all we're able to do. 100% support the councillors in their call out to everyone to unite in this and to work together and to try and get through this. So I think it's scary what's going to happen in the next 3, 4, 6 months when the pandemic actually becomes reality in our region. I hope and pray that we can all get through this safely and that we don't lose lives over this, with people getting it that are vulnerable. Just hoping we can get through this, that our health system can stand it, and that we are in a strong position as we move forward as a region. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, councillors. This is seriously curly, isn't it? I mean, unfortunately, I had to leave the meeting last Wednesday due to other commitments, as you're all well aware of. I find it hard when we stand here and talk about the mandate, and do not get me wrong, I am not an anti-vaxxer, I'm pro-choice. We read this recommendation here, and to me there's just contradictions here where you can say the restrictions are a matter of Queensland Health and the state government, and yet we turn around and we want to support Queensland Health. How many people are losing their jobs in Queensland Health? How many people are losing their jobs in the education department? How many people are losing their jobs, like kids that are leaving school that are getting part-time employment that are being put off? And my phone has been ringing hot with people and you talk about division, it's already happened. It's already happening. And I said last week, there would be no conversation here if there was not a mandate imposed on people. I struggle to support this. I will accept this Chamber's decision today, but honestly, this would not be happening without this mandate. So we have Queensland Health on this hand and the state government on the other hand, controlling it, and we have no say in it, and yet our resources are going to be stretched to the limit with supporting small businesses, our Queensland Police Force. We don't have enough police officers out there as it is. Is there what, is all the crime just gone away all of a sudden? And I feel for them and I feel for their families. People have been put in very, very compromising positions here. And again, I hate that word I. This is not what's right and what's wrong. We don't know. We've never dealt with this before. It's a pandemic that's been beat up across the world and it's worldwide. And I honestly believe the media has had it, certainly, and I think someone touched on that a week, perhaps yourself, Councillor Shoemaker. Exactly. I think the media's got a lot to answer for here. I respect this Chamber's decision, but when I read this position Council has on vaccination and mandates, I struggle because when we read down in the section to respect, and I mentioned that as well, we acknowledge the rights of our residents and the freedom of choices to COVID vaccinations, that also would relate to the mandate. The mandate rules, I'm sorry, are seriously wrong. So with that, I'm going to seriously struggle to accept this position of council, and sorry, but I'll stand by that.
Okay, other councillors? Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just on a comment that Councillor Duff made in our council not enforcing the mandates and hasn't been told that we have to. That's the bit I struggle with. Now, we as a council, I give you the example the other day. The library over here, vaccinated and unvaccinated people can walk in side by side and spend all day there. Go across to Glendon Street, you've got to be separated. So many inconsistencies. Right, 1 to 5 here is a given. We do that. That's a given. Right? I said my piece. I'm not going to get into it. I said my stuff last week at the workshop. Number 6, way too soft. Way too soft for me. I would not support this motion simply because we need to write to the Premier. Now, we've just discussed the FAGS grants and all that, and we took a real strong stance on that. We as a council and we as a community, it's out there, everybody. And I'm not talking about the people that choose not to get vaccinated. I'm talking about the whole community, vaccinated and non-vaccinated. They have no idea what we're doing or what's expected of them. The small businesses have got all this extra stuff enforced upon them by the choices or the decisions of the Chief Medical Officer and the Premier. Put the pressure on them and make them answer. The Mayor's comments and all that around the FAGS grants, totally agree with them. They need to be accountable for what they're doing. These are decisions that are affecting the whole community, vaccinated or non-vaccinated. They need to be made answer the questions, not for either side, right? These decisions, the mandates, have created what we are dealing with and will deal with into the future. So let's put the pressure back on the people that make the decisions, just like us as councillors. We walk out in the community after making decisions in this chamber, and the people of our community ask us and make us accountable for the decisions we make and force upon them. What's the difference with the Premier and the Health Officer? That's all I'm asking. So I will not support this unless number 6 is strongly strengthened with the fact that we write directly to the Premier and the Health Officer asking for clear clarity on what they expect the vaccinated, the non-vaccinated and the small business owners to do. All right? They need to take ownership of their decisions. They are passing the buck again. We talk about everything else that they passed. The Mayor mentioned before, all the things that used to be taken care of the state government, now put on the council. This is another one. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 are a given. We do that without even thinking about it as far as I'm concerned. These are my personal thoughts. Number 6, I want to see that we represent the whole of the community and ask for clear clarity from the Premier and the Health Officer. So, and I don't know how we do it or what. Add into that item number 6, with affected local small businesses, we write the Premier seeking financial assistance for affected businesses and community groups, and clear clarity from the Premier and the Chief Health Officer on how these mandates are going to be implemented and where the responsibility lies, and what their ideas of the effect on our communities across Queensland and Australia. COVID's coming. 804 cases in Newcastle last night. Mandates or no mandates, it's going to spread through Queensland like wildfire. Non-vaccinated and vaccinated people will get it. The mandates won't stop it. So I am asking this council to write a letter, put the pressure right back on the people that are responsible for enforcing the mandates on the people of our country, state, small business and communities.
Thank you, Councillor. Just in terms of our process here, because of the significance of this issue to our community, I would not normally allow this, but understanding yours, I will allow every councillor to have a second opportunity to speak here because it is an important issue. So, and then Councillor Potter, I think we'll come back to you for right of reply at the end. So, Councillor Shoemaker, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly don't agree with Councillor Henshin and Councillor Jones's comments. It is an impost on small business, and I know the confusion around that, and I worry for our community. And I share your view. We should and we must write to the Premier. What I would like to hear from you both, and my question to you both is, what are you proposing to say? Because I feel clarity. That's simple. Well, we've all received the pack. I've got one here in my thing where, yeah, you've got a poster and some basic do's and don'ts. If I go in and I'm not vaccinated, I, can order my coffee to take away, but I can't sit in the cafe with my girlfriend and drink it. But there's nothing stopping me from going and sitting on the street. I completely agree. I completely understand what you're saying. But from neither of you, I don't have clarity in terms of what it is you want us to put in that letter. I fully support your strong stance. I absolutely believe in holding those people to account. It's their decision, and it's impacting our community. And I share your view that we need to let them know how detrimental the new rules will be for the well-being of a regional community like ours. A regional community where, unlike in Brisbane, where I might go and order my coffee and the barista I see today will be different to the barista I see tomorrow, you will walk in and see the same people working in our small businesses, and they're going to have to be the ones. They're going to have to be the ones to say, sorry, Kirsty, I know you've been in here millions of times before. You can stay, but your friend here can't. That's not fair. I absolutely share your view. I absolutely do. But from neither of your comments, I'm not clear in terms of what the hell we're putting in that letter. And that's what I want clarity on. So if you want clarity in the decisions, my fear is, well, got a pack, I'll grab it for you. There's a poster and there's a bit of info in there, and if you can stomach reading through the pages and pages of rules, I can just see people standing at their shopfront counters with those. Just wait a minute, Councillor Jones, while I just refer to my novel of rules here. You know, it's impractical. We all understand that. But what is it that you want to see in that letter? Because I'm right with you, absolutely. But I want to see our council unite in its decision, and I want a clear position. So I'm asking you both, what is it we're putting in that letter? What is it we need to put in this motion beyond what's there now?
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. And as Councillor Shoemaker indicated, she supports writing a letter. So I'm more than happy to take any ideas of any clarity. But, righto, inconsistencies that I highlighted. Council is not being mandated to enforce these mandates. Enforce them, but Glendon Street and all the other businesses are. Firstly, how is that fair? Why is council-owned facilities not getting mandates enforced upon them, and private small businesses? I want to know what these mandates are going to achieve, what they think the mandates are going to achieve to keep our community safe, because I'm not clear. You just indicated that you've got a, we've all got service. We're not clear. So I want them to tell me what they think enforcing these mandates on the small business and all that sort of shit and all the rest, what it's going to achieve and make our community better and safer. That's two that I can think of straight away. Financial impact, by the security, the security buttons and all that sort of stuff, and the extra concerns and the panic and the stress and all that sort of stuff, and the possibility that, let's say someone gets injured. I asked this question the other day. If I'm a small business owner and I say, sorry, you can't come in because you're not mandated, and the police indicated the other day, they will use restraint and all that and, be compassionate and all the rest of it. If there's a serious issue, give me a ring. Well, if it's going to be a serious issue and it's going to escalate, the damage will already be done by the time the police get there. So who's going to be responsible for any injuries that are incurred to any person that tries to enforce these mandates that they have made? And just stuff around like that. Now, like these mandates, it's their decision. As I said, 1 to 5, it's a given. You do that no matter what. I just think that these people should be made accountable for the decisions that they've made, a much clearer explanation. The packs that they've handed out, people have read them and they've said to me, I'm no clearer than where I was before I read them. It's not clear indication of what's expected of the people. So it's the damages, it's the costs, it's the impact on the building, it's the impact on their lives, their stress, all that sort of stuff. What do they expect these mandates to do? They'll come out and they said, oh yeah, mandates, it's going to save the world and it's going to stop the spread of COVID and it's blah, blah. Yep, okay. How? Because it's not working in New South Wales. They've tried that, let it all go, and she's going. So that's the confusion that I have. There's so many inconsistencies. Okay, so many inconsistencies on what they're saying and the outcomes and all the rest of it, and what's expected of different sections of our community. That's what I want the clarity on. Why is it not just one hard, fast rule right across every single business, every single entity, council, government, whatever? It's not. There's so many inconsistencies there. That's what I want around the clarity.
Okay, Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Pretty simple, I would have thought. Get rid of the mandate. Write a letter to the Premier, say asking to review those mandates. When Councillor Jones has just said New South Wales is already changing their tact on it. The Northern Territory is changing their tact on it. Again, I'll say, we would not be having this conversation only for mandate rules. And who and why were they? We've gone 2 years in this pandemic, and have a look at us. Now, after 2 years, they're making the division amongst us and arguing. You talk about business houses, give them 2 weeks to trial it. What chaos is there going to be then? Unemployment? I've already stated the people that are losing their jobs in the education department, the kids that are leaving school, their first job. Mother only last night rang me in tears about a son that got his first job after school. Pocket money, little casual guy. Wonderful. Bang, he's gone. No job. Why? Because of the rules and regulations that the Queensland Government and the Queensland Health Department has imposed on people. And whose consultation did they go for that? So to me, it's seriously cut and dried. This mandate shouldn't even be discussed. It shouldn't even be here. We've gone 2 years through this, and in our community, look how we've been. Have we had a case here? One. And was that initially right at the start? Anyway, in our environment, in our community, if we've had 1 or 2 cases, that's tragic. I'm sorry, this mandate is doing exactly what, some people wish it to do, and that's create division. There's no consistency, there's contradiction the whole way through it. So, write a letter to the Premier, that my letter would be, seriously review this mandate and revoke it.
Councillor Duff, your second opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think, the reason why we haven't had any so many COVID cases is because we kept the borders closed. So now the borders are going to be open. So I think we need to consider that. But also, I 100% agree with what's been said here about the confusion. Maybe as part of that letter that we ask for clarity as to why some businesses and not others, because I think that is a big part of the issue. Why one library and not another library? I think clarity is certainly something that needs to be added in there. Clarity as to why. We 100% agree. So, but I think, we have to be careful about calling the Queensland government out on it, because I think that they it's Queensland Health and it's a directive from Queensland Health. So as we've said in number 3, that mandated restrictions are a matter for Queensland Health and the state government. So I think that that's not our call, but certainly clarity around why the decisions have been made would be, I think that would answer a lot of questions for our community. Thank you.
Okay. Look, just listening to everybody, I think Councillor Potter's resolution to seek financial assistance for our small businesses and community groups who are carrying the load on having to apply these rules is a really great idea. I would hope that the government would see fit to put in place some sort of reimbursement or compensation scheme for them. I'm concerned that this is becoming divisive for our region, and I've been listening to some comments that I want to just pull out of what you've all said. And Councillor Shoemaker talk about being kind and about supporting each other. And I really think that this is a time where, as a council, we should be doing whatever we can to encourage people to be kind, to support each other. Councillor Jones spoke about that COVID cases are coming, and this thing is going to go through our region like wildfire. From what we're seeing interstate, that seems to be the case, that once the borders open, we're not going to have that 2 years of luxury that we've had for the last 2 years. We're actually going to very quickly be swamped by COVID in this region, very quickly. I am concerned for our hospital staff. Point 4 is about supporting our hospital staff. Point 4 isn't about supporting the hierarchy of Queensland Health, to ensure our local hospitals and health services are prepared when the border is open. And I think we've got to get behind them. Look, there's been a lot of talk about here about people who are affected because they can't go for coffee if they're not vaccinated, and that they might cause a fight or someone might get harmed. Where is your personal responsibility to conduct yourself appropriately? Now, if I chose to not get vaccinated, or one of my children did, I would hope that I or one of them would not go into a coffee shop and make the life any harder, or a hotel for the person who was simply doing what they've been told they've got to do. That is the person behind the counter. Where's your personal responsibility? We shouldn't be relying on the business owners and the police to enforce this. The police asked the other day in Kingaroy, please, they asked our community, please don't use this as an opportunity to make a political statement, because all you're doing is hurting those coffee shop owners, those publicans who are just doing their job. Personal responsibility for your conduct when you go into one of those venues is really important here, community. Be kind, support each other. Should we be questioning the Chief Health Officer? I don't believe so. The Chief Health Officer is a long-serving doctor and medical professional and has gone at lengths. I've watched the Chief Health Officers, I've watched Dr. Young, I've watched Peter Aiken speak at length on the telly about the reason for the mandates. At length. They had laboured to explain the reasons for the mandates. And they were clear. The reasons for the mandates are that if we have unvaccinated people congregating close by in hotels, cafes and so forth, then those people are all at risk, as are the vaccinated people. And that is going to put untenable strain on our hospital system, on our nurses and doctors. I think we have to be careful about questioning health professionals when they make decisions or give advice to government, because we don't necessarily know the data or the science that's behind their decisions. I feel we need to trust our health professionals. I've trusted my doctor, and I don't think my doctor has ever once let me down in doing the right thing. And he's saying to me right now, Brett, this needs to be supported. That's what my doctor's saying. He's really concerned about what this region's going to face. Businesses trialling it for 2 weeks, Councillor Henson, that's what the small businesses said to us. They actually said to us in Mergen, all the small businesses said, don't write to the Premier now, give us a go, let's see how we're going after 2 or 3 weeks, come back to us, we'll tell you what all the problems are, and then we want you to go to the Premier and tell her, this isn't working, or that isn't working, or this is what we need. They just wanted an opportunity to do that first. That was exactly what they said to us, and Councillor Jones, you were there when they said that to us. 7 businesses, but they represented the business community, and the Mergen Business Association was there. So that was still the best advice that we got from them. I think we need to be really careful here. I've spoken to a business owner, a cafe owner, who believed that because of but wanted us to be a pro-choice council. And she said to me, Brett, why doesn't your council come out and make the same resolution as Livingston Shire Council? Then I don't have to enforce these mandates. Then my staff don't have to get vaccinated. Then everyone can come into my shop, just like they can up in Capricornia. I had to explain to her that Livingston Shire are not exempt from these mandates. That council has no jurisdiction. That council can stand up and say whatever the hell they want. They can throw out whatever resolutions they want. They don't override, the local council doesn't override the directives from Queensland Health. So that has muddied the water, as Councillor Shoemaker has articulated. People are already confused because of what Livingston Shire did. I don't want our small businesses to be tripping over themselves, going around blindly thinking that because we've resolved to not support the mandates, that they don't have to, and then they get someone from Public Health Unit turn up and issue them with a fine because they haven't been complying. That to me would be irresponsible. To me, we've got to make sure that we're communicating clearly the information. And I do believe we should be supporting our local small businesses who are most directly affected by this. I'm happy to write to the Premier, but I'm with Councillor Shoemaker on this, Councillor Jones and Councillor Henson. I'm still not clear what you want us to say. I think we should be very careful about questioning a health professional as councillors. I don't think we are in a position to question the health professional's advice to the government. And I think we should be very clear about not muddying the water and confusing people about what their obligations are by any stance that we take. Okay. I think everyone's had 2 chances to speak, so I do think we need to wrap this up now. I'm going to go to Councillor Potter for right of reply, and then we'll go to the vote. Thank you. Unless there's a councillor that wishes to move an amendment to the resolution, happy to have that because it's due process, we can do that. Anyone wants to amend Councillor Potter's resolution? Because I've heard some of that here today.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to add that to the bottom, number 6, seeking financial assistance and clarity around why some businesses have been chosen to be mandated and not others. It's just a simple explanation so that we can provide that feedback to our businesses as to why some businesses have been asked to introduce mandates and others not. Yeah, some businesses have had restrictions applied and not others. And I think that's pretty much what Councillor Jones was asking, to just clarity. It's not questioning what they're doing, it's just asking to explain why.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Councillor Potter, are you happy with that addition?
Yes, I am,
Okay.
Mr Mayor, as long as Councillor Jones and Councillor Henson are okay with it.
Okay.
I would like to get their opinion.
Okay, so yeah, we'll go to that shortly, but you're comfortable with that change, okay? Does anyone want to put forward an amendment to the motion? Opportunity to do so now. If not, we'll go to the vote. Okay, let's go to the vote then. Those in favour? Councillor Jones, Duff, Potter, Shoemaker and Otto. Those against? Councillor Henson. Thank you all. The motion has been carried 6 votes to 1. Okay, now, oh yes, sorry, 5-1. Sorry, my mistake. Goodness, an accountant that can't add up. Could we bring back Councillor Frolov? Thank you. Yes, I think it's appropriate we go to our CEO to clarify some things, particularly in relation to library.
Yep. Now, for Councillor Frolov's benefit, this will have no impact on her conflict of interest, because all I want to talk about is factual statements as far as the impact on council's business. Certainly not prosecuting the argument. It's an exceptionally complex process that we've now entered into this phase of it. And again, absolutely, it looks like council's not affected, and certainly some of the commentary from other local authorities, the council's not affected. Council's affected. If you can think of council as a business with 300 staff, we have a range of different services, and yes, our libraries and town halls, because with the and I'll acknowledge LGAQ with the submission, whilst that was confused in through some call it social media or some other postings about what level of input, but we've tabled that information before. We went back to the powers that be because our libraries and that we're going to get dragged into it. But what they didn't consider is there was the business of local government. It's not just borrowing a book, because a number of councils now across the state have co-located customer service. So you had the dichotomy of being able to walk into a library today and pay rates, but not walk into the library tomorrow and borrow a book. So it was that inconsistency that we challenged. We were, myself and Manager Humphrey, were engaged in that because it was. So we do have COVID safe plans for all our activities. We do have to comply with the law of the state, and that's why we've put in all the media release. We have to comply with the Commonwealth and state law. We have no choice. Now, where it comes to the mandates, we are impacted. Yes, we've had some, when I say success, as far as simplifying our libraries and town halls. Our visitor, and I suppose I'll go back to March 2013, there was in council, the second case was mine. Thankfully, both of the cases that were in our region were full recoveries. It was March 13th, 2020, when it was released through the media that we had the case at one of the local businesses, and that was our first opening to it. And I remember it exceptionally well because I went home at night, it was 6 o'clock, fired up the computer, and here it was on the news. So we did what we knew best, because we like any other business, how do you handle this thing? We fell into our disaster management framework and activated the LDMG. So we went straight back into a process that we knew and understood. And this is where we do have advantages over a small business, is that we've got that framework to lean on and lean into. So we fell into that. So exceptionally proud last year of how our organisation, how our staff handled it. We were able to conduct our business with very minimal impact to the community and actually service delivery. Made a declaration at the time, and which has been supported subsequently by state declarations, that all of our workers, not just the guys digging the holes and fixing the roads and doing the water pipes, all of our workers are essential workers. We are in the same basis again. Our museums and galleries are impacted. I've got pages of rules as to if there is tourism attraction as versus to a community group as to a verse. So I've got density levels, and we are going about this again in the same disaster management framework and our business continuity plan that we updated last year. We rebuilt it because the one off the shelf that we had wasn't able to cope. So we rebuilt our business continuity planning around this pandemic. Now we're dusting it off again. As an organisation, we've gone back to exactly where we were on the 13th of March 2020. So we're in preparation phase now of our business continuity. After the 17th, I'm moving to implementation phase for our business continuity planning. Our visitor information centres, believe it or not, were declared essential local government services. So that was good. The state worked that out. But again, where they co-locate with the art gallery and using Kingaroy and the museum and the art gallery have different declarations about them to the visitor information centre. Now, that's the inconsistency I think we all struggle with as to, and it's certainly not a lap at anyone, but there's people who are doing these rules, not probably, but for all the best intention, but they don't necessarily understand the business of local government. And if I'm Queensland Museum, I'm not going to be tucked into a VIC. So they're looking at their state-owned facilities and how they would operate. So we've worked a path around it. So our art galleries and museums, rather than having mandate controls, there's a mechanism to have density controls. So we're moving to the space that we will have density controls and those not mandate controls. It's an extremely complicated process, and I'm not talking it up. It is an extremely complicated process. Our two tourism dams, our two dams, are directly affected. We have got the same rules as the Glendon Street Cafe. So we've actually gone to the process now, and we will have vaccinated and unvaccinated guests and staff in this space, both through the contractor and our own people. We have moved to the space that both of those businesses now will become fully takeaway to be compliant with the rules. We have physically removed the tables, or in the process of physically removing the tables. So this is the level that you have to go through as part of the preparation and implementation phase. So you cannot stay in that facility and eat. So you can go and buy your coffee and your hamburger and then you leave, and then that's fine. We're compliant. So we, as the same as any other business, have to adhere to. So the law of the state is the law of the state, and fully respect the diversity of opinion. But at the end of the day, as a local authority, and again, I certainly take the Mayor's point, I understand why some other local authorities have come out and said X, Y, Z, that's their business. As a local authority, at the end of the day, we have to adhere to the law of the state. And the law of the state is very, very clear. As part of the implementation phase again, so we've got, with the Christmas period, a little bit of a grace period, so we'll have stuff. We are utilising, we're purchasing our own daily testing regime. We're seeking clarification ourselves now on what happens if you're a close contact. There's aspects of this legislation that are still very hard to understand, and we've gone back to Queensland Health. Again, not prosecuting an argument, but just is exceptionally difficult. We're finding it difficult to navigate. I would hate to think with organisations less resources. We've had a weekly meeting with the senior executive team now for 5 weeks about this, just specifically on how we deal with this next phase. I'm actually really quite comfortable because, again, there is no doubt that it will enter our organisation. I really have personally no doubt it will. Now, how we handle it and how we manage it, we are separating key staff, we're separating functions like we will look at separating key staff. So if we have to have a shutdown, in speaking to the abattoir, I've spoken to Lincoln about their business continuity planning, so we will partner with them so that we can offer them assistance if there's an outbreak there. They can maintain their administrative operations. So without going into detail. I found everyone in the business community is actually, and again, please think of us as a business, not the council. We're all in the same boat as working out how to navigate this space, and it's like the old trout swimming upstream. We're just swimming upstream, but I'm actually, for council's benefit today, and thank you for the opportunity, I'm quite, when I say comfortable, there will be challenges, but I think we can navigate this for the next bit to work out and then see where it rolls from there. So thanks, Mayor. If there's any questions, happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Mr. CEO, and thank you for the work you and the senior executive and management team have been doing, because we are affected like any other business. And thank you for clarifying the situation with libraries as well, where you've got customer service centres and libraries in the one location. Much appreciated. Councillor Schumacher.
Yes, certainly appreciate the work that's gone in. Just want to understand, if we did have a COVID case, for instance, in a space like our library or our dams, and I guess, become part of that contact tracing sort of space, just trying to understand, do we actually need to deep clean those facilities? What are our do our staff have to go into isolation until such time as, it's been 14 days or everyone's had a test? I just want to understand, from a business continuity point for council, how that looks.
I'm broken. The deep clean and the cleaning regime is there. It's probably this time on first swipe of it, and this is actually the exact point that we're seeking clarification on, because if we're a close contact and we have to, again, same issue with a number of businesses, not just unique to us. If we have to shut down, so if we get it, let's pretend it's here today. So we shut down the entire elected arm and executive services for 14 days. Place can't operate. It just is a sheer practical fact. Gets into the Nanango office, we shut down engineering for 14 days. The place can't operate. So these are business decisions. We've actually gone back to Queensland Health for clarification on that. There will be different rules, and this is probably not going to give you a totally satisfactory answer because we're still working through the process. And please, when I say don't be scared, I'm probably not the right word, but we're working through a process to understand this. Yes, there will be a cleaning regime. There will be different rules, we believe, once the 17th ticks over for unvaccinated, vaccinated in this space, as into quarantining versus, and it would be similar in my mind to, and my interpretation, so please don't take this as gospel, while we're seeking clarification. It'll be similar to coming back if it's a fully vaccinated person to a hotspot. 72 hours, clear test, 5 days, secondary test. If it's clear, everyone's happy. Now we've got, as part of our business continuity, work from home, we're just in the process of buying 200 of the rapid daily tests, accepting that they're not as good as the full test. They're saliva tests, they're easy done. People who want to come to work and may have been an associated contact, if I've got my language right, as opposed to a close contact, or close contact in the 5 days. They don't want to necessarily be staying home. We can test voluntarily each day before the door. So bang, any first sign of it, sorry, you're out the show. So there's a whole range of mechanisms in this space, and I have a much clearer understanding of it in January, and that's the bit. Queensland Health is absolutely pivotal in this space as to the advice that they, not even without being rude to the Premier or anyone else, but Queensland as operational arm, Queensland Health is absolutely pivotal in this space as to the advice they give. And that advice, if I was going to give it a plug for anything, that advice needs to be clear.
Yes, thank you, Mr. CEO. Any further questions or our CEO, Councillor Jones?
Just one quick question, Mr. Mayor, to the CEO. Am I right in understanding that at our dams at Christmas time, people that are vaccinated and unvaccinated can go there and camp side by side for a period of time?
You are certainly correct. And as I said, what we've done with the kiosks will ensure that we're able to serve any customer that comes.
That's correct. So anyone can go into the kiosk, they can be served, vaccinated or unvaccinated, but they can go and they can't share a meal up there together, but they can set up in tents for a week at the facility, side by side, unvaccinated, vaccinated.
I will yield to greater knowledge, but it's the kiosks and cafes that have been captured in that. There will be there will be other aspects to it. There will be density limits. There will be a range of other. But yes, as far as my understanding of it is, happy to be corrected, but it's the kiosk
Yeah,
that's
no,
captured.
And I understand, like, they're saying that it's less transferable in open air, but that's the hypocrisy and the inconsistencies I referred to, and that's what we need. Yeah.
Okay, now, Councillor Shoemaker.
Sorry, I just had one further question. Just thinking about certainly the panic that we saw when those 2 cases did break out in South Burnett, and just want to understand from a disaster management point of view, if we get a case in the South Burnett, I know Queensland Health is the lead agency, but do we stand up, and what does that actually look like for us in practice?
I'm happy to yield to Councillor Froloff, but in the first instance, Queensland Health's the lead agency in this, and we take our guide and direction from Queensland Health. We have an extremely strong and robust disaster framework, actually, and that stood us in, and I can't give it enough of a plug, that stood us in, and I suppose it's what you're comfortable with and what you understand. So we're able to treat this as if it was a flood, as probably as silly as that sounds. So as an organisation, and last year, and I'll ask everyone to cast their mind back, and there is a lot of concern and fear in the community, and it's been driven for a whole raft of things. And again, not prosecuting either argument, but last year our community and council continued to pump, and we pumped a massive amount of capital works and services through the community, and we made sure that people got paid, the bins were collected, the libraries were open. Even when we had to shut the libraries, we reallocated those staff to different things. Our disaster framework sets this organisation, the people we've got and the leadership we've got in the disaster framework sets this organisation in good stead. Now, it won't be to say that there will be problems, but I would just say to everyone who's listening to me is that calm, absolute respect to everyone's opinion, absolutely. No judgment, everyone's in a different circumstances, and that individuality of understanding their circumstance is important. This will be a complex and difficult time to get through, but the sun will come up on the 18th of December, and I have no doubt the world will keep spinning.
That's a really good note to finish on. Wonderful advice. Thank you, Mr. CEO, for your leadership around this with the organisation and the community, in fact. Okay, now on a brighter note, we have some wonderful people here from the business community who we're now going to recognise in relation to Santa's workshop this year, which I know has been a roaring success again. And can I publicly thank everyone involved, Nicola, all the businesses, everyone involved in making this kicking off the festive season through our local businesses. Thank you very much on behalf of the community. So what we'll do now is I'll move that we close the meeting, adjourn the meeting. Thank you, Mr. CEO. We'll adjourn the meeting. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Henson. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all. Okay, I'll now move that we reopen the meeting at 2 p.m. of seconder. Thank you, Councillor Duff. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 11.1, sorry. Funding application preparing Australian communities at 207. It's recommended that Council nominates the Mobile Generators Project for the Preparing Australians Communities Local Stream Program. Do we have a mover? Councillor Shoemaker, second to Councillor Potter. Speakers? Happy to go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 13.1 is the Infrastructure Charges Review Comparative Analysis at 210. Council, that report has been provided. We've had an opportunity to look over that in recent days, and it's recommended that we receive the Infrastructure Charges Review Comparative Analysis. Do we have a mover?
Mr. Mayor,
Oh, sorry.
to
Yes,
propose
Councillor
an
Shoemaker.
amendment to that.
Yes, please
So I'd
proceed.
like to move a motion that council receives infrastructure charges review and that a workshop of council be conducted to discuss the report and review findings in the first quarter, in early 2022. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it's an excellent report, and I really appreciate the work that's gone into this, GMO May, for you and your team. I think there are some important insights in that report, and certainly I'd appreciate the opportunity just to delve a little bit deeper and ask some questions. It's great to have that comparison of our infrastructure charges. I know that that has been a hot topic, certainly ever since I've been elected, and it's good to see us benchmarked against other councils, and I think there is an opportunity from some of the findings to just look at that a little bit more, certainly understand it. I can see Gympie has done some interesting things where they've broken up their infrastructure charges based on the townships to encourage growth in areas which may have less services, so there's less of an impact. And I guess some of those things I think would be really interesting for us to unpack. I also note there's some commentary there around residential development, and I really want to understand that further, because I guess in some of the comments made, it says that, it's counterproductive basically to our local economy and the needs of the best interests of our community. And whilst I disagree, I do want to understand that view more. Certainly, I know every conversation that all of us are a part of in any of our respective communities, residential housing and the lack of available land is something that comes up all of the time. And I know our goal has been to support population growth and jobs, but certainly agree that if we have industry, and we do at the moment, and we have industry with no place for anyone to live. So it's a very difficult position to be in on the back of what has been a couple of years of very limited growth. And just think this report is wonderful, and really want to take the time with my colleagues to understand it further, and to, I think, with the work that's happening with the planning scheme amendments and our intentions to streamline planning and really support that growth in our region, I think it's important. So I look forward to the workshop and hope I'm sure Council shares the same view.
Thank you, Councillor. Further councillors? We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 14.1 is an amendment to the asbestos disposal fees at Kingaroy Waste Facility to comply with the state government requirements. Page 236. And it has, of course, from the Standing Committee, the recommendation is that South Burnett Regional Council amend its 21-22 Register of Fees and Charges to include for less than 10 square metres of domestic self-haul, so this is asbestos as such, per tonne, it will go to a per tonne rate of $100.50. For greater than 10 square metres of domestic self-haul, a per tonne rate of $196 per tonne. So do we have a mover for such? Councillor Frolov, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Henshin, thank you. Okay, speakers? Okay, discussed at length at the Standing Committee meeting. We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 15.1, update of security, additional CCTV, at page 238. And again, this has been presented and discussed at the Standing Committee meeting, where it's been recommended that Council considers in the second quarter budget review a budget allocation of $90,000 for the installation of CCTV cameras for Kingaroy Memorial Park, River Road Park, and external building component of Glendon Street Public Amenities and the IT building, and entry point to the rail trail from Youngman Street and the Mears Road intersection. Do we have a mover? Mover for that? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Potter. Speakers? Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 15.2, request for funding, Kingaroy Chamber of Commerce and Industry at 2:39. I'll now leave the meeting and hand over to Deputy Mayor Jones. Thank you.
Okay, excuse me, thank you. 15.2, request for funding, Kingaroy Chamber of Commerce and Industry. The committee resolution that the committee recommends to council, the South Burnett Regional Council, consider in the second quarter budget review the request from the Kingaroy Chamber of Commerce Inc. for financial support to the value of $53,877.72 for one new compliant toilet facility suitable for use by people with disabilities, $31,246.72 GST inclusive. 2, contribute to the additional cost over and above plasterboard to supply of black form ply ceiling with expressed shadow line joints, $15,416 GST inclusive. 3, installation of R3.5 bats to the ceiling cavity concurrently with the new ceiling construction, $7,215 GST inclusive. So the officer's recommendation, that is exactly that as it was read, that the South Burnett Regional Council consider in the second quarter budget review the request from the Kingaroy Chamber of Commerce Inc. for financial support to the value of $53,877 for 1, 2 and 3 there below as read just then from the resolution. So do we have a mover there? Councillor Shoemaker, seconder. Councillor Henson. Comments, councillors?
Sorry, just a question. I just wanted to check in terms of the terminology because I know how quickly this project is moving. Considering in the second budget quarter review, I just wanted to understand when were we actually planning on having that review, and if we were to allocate funding through that review, how long from now until I guess we get that sort of certainty, or are we here nominating that we'll fund the project? Just wanted to clarify because I think it sounds like we're going to consider it in our budget review process, and yeah, I just want to make sure we're not holding anybody up.
Through you,
Through you, yep.
through you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor, the second review is being done as we speak.
Okay.
So we're looking to review the recommendations, and I've just, as these resolutions have been passed, I've just been forwarding them on to my finance staff to include them in the second second revision review as well. So they will be compiling that all on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week.
Yep.
And they will be giving that to the set prior to us finishing at the end of this year. And then they will, we will have a look at it and we will twig it for early January, where we'll workshop with council, then provide it to council in January.
Okay, so no. Excellent. Anything further to add, CEO Mark?
I was just going to say is that was comprehensive. Mine was a non-accountant-y one. Is this will go in? It's being funded. It's to be allocated out of unallocated depreciation funds. From my understanding, it'll get fed into the capital and be produced to the January ordinary for endorsement.
Yeah. Okay. So we don't. I'm just wondering, do we need the motion to read that it's funded out of unfunded capital, or that we go through this process?
If you wanted to clarify it, I mean, the only thing is if there isn't a capital if there isn't enough unfunded capital, which I don't know the answer to, is these guys probably just need to double check. But
Yeah. Okay.
and General Manager, I'll yield to greater knowledge there, but it'll be fed into as part of the amendment for the capital. It would get that second resolution if we do it this way at January. If you're going to do it, it would just change consider to fund in the second quarter budget review, but that would be the leave of the meeting. That's not for me.
Yes, I would like to propose that amendment, that South Burnett Regional Council fund in the second quarter budget review the request from the Chamber of Commerce for financial support to the value of $53,877, noting that we do have that provision in unfunded capital for this project, as has been discussed previously. So thank you.
So, Councillor, do you want to add in there as well that it's funded, or where we're looking to fund that from? Yeah, consider to fund, yep. So the South Bennett Regional Council fund in the second quarter budget review the request from the Kingaroy Chamber of Commerce Inc. for financial support to the value of 53. You happy with that, Councillor Engine? Yeah. Councillor Shoemaker, do you want to add in there anything?
No, I just feel we've been given the advice that from our that this is an option. We can fund it through that unallocated depreciation. We all agree that this facility and what it will mean for small business will be very important on the back of the conversations that we've had and the importance of standing together and uniting and working together. I think a business hub like this, there's never been a better time to invest in facilities like that in our region. I also acknowledge the incredible amount of work the Kingaroy Chamber of Commerce and the enormous in-kind support that they have from their local business community. It sounds like certainly yesterday at their AGM, everyone is chipping in their fair share of support to get this thing up and running. And I just think it's an exceptional project. It really will help move our business community forward and provide a place for those small micro businesses to come together and really boost the work that they do. So there are many entrepreneurs and innovative ideas in our region, and they just need support like this to get their projects up off the ground. And certainly talking to agencies like Oz Industry, who were there yesterday at Kingaroy's Chamber of Commerce, they're keen to invest in projects in our region, and I guess we need to work with our business community to really nurture those entrepreneurs and point them in the right direction of funding, and projects like this will achieve those kind of outcomes. So I'm fully supportive, and I just know how hard the Chamber is working to get this thing off the ground, and I think if we can give them some certainty around funding it, it would be ideal from a project management point of view. So yes, that's why I'd like to see the change in the resolution. Thank you.
Okay. So we've got Councillor Shoemaker moving that the South Bennett Regional Council fund in the second quarter budget review. Councillor Henshins agreed to that change. Go to the floor. Councillor Duff.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I did raise this at the committee meeting that I'm not going to support this. I think that I'm happy to support 2 and 3, but I think that the disability toilet, there's a toilet just no distance behind the where the building is to for anybody utilising that particular building could just walk behind and use the Glenna Street toilets. And in the meantime, there is an opportunity to just ask if they're not for a profit group, which they are, they could just apply for funding. And I just think it's that council, if has always asked for not-for-profit groups to contribute. Like I know that group in Proston, all they wanted was some money towards a sensory guard, but we've asked them to step up and do some fundraising. But because and I know that there's other business communities around. There's the Mergen and Natcha and all these different community groups. And with the toilet so close, I just can't see why they would suddenly desperately need a toilet when it's a stone's throw away. Why wouldn't we just hold on to our money? I mean, it's okay to say there's a bucket of money that could be used, but that could be used for a whole heap of things across our region. So yeah, just wanting to not support on the grounds that there's a toilet just right there, and yeah, if they wanted a toilet, they could just apply for funding.
Councillor Potter.
Hi, thank you. I'd just actually like to say that to get to that toilet from that particular shop, they would have to, the disabled person would have to walk right around the street because they wouldn't be able to get through the back door at that time with their wheelchair or anything like that. So that particular movement at the moment they can't do, so therefore having a toilet on the premises is the best move at this stage. And also with regards to this particular building, I've spoken to many different not-for-profits that are actually looking forward to this happening, that they can actually do this and actually help the community from this particular place once it's finished. So I'm looking forward to this being done. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just quickly, I think it's been approved with community consultation with the KTP project and the PWDs around the town. Councillor Duff, does that mean you're not supportive of those parks because they're only a stone throw away as well? We've incorporated 13 of those in the streets. Do you want to take them away? Well, there's a facility there for the disabled, and as Councillor Potter has suggested, it doesn't matter whether you're a stone's throw away, it's a service, and the whole purpose of this building with the Kingaroy Chamber of Commerce, and I'll go back to the conversation we've had this morning in Chambers with what's our community and the state, I think that this will be just a given in that building and the facility and the what the Kingaroy Chamber of Commerce is doing and a wonderful job they're doing. I just think this is a given. Thank you.
Councillor Shoemaker.
I just wanted to confirm, GMO May, it was my understanding that the toilet facility, that was actually triggered through council's own building requirements. So when we actually did remove the asbestos and alike from the building to make it safe, because we're leasing it to the Chamber of Commerce, and the significant building work that was happening inside, that the requirement for people with disabilities toilet space was actually a council requirement.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Yeah, that's correct. That was reported to the Standing Committee that it was triggered through the works that's required. So as part of the building approval was to do the PWD toilet.
Thank you.
Any other councillors before we wrap up? Any other comments? Okay, yeah, exactly. This is a council-owned facility. These works are being done through a community organisation, the Kingaroy Chamber of Commerce, that is doing wonderful work. They've hit 110 members as of last night. They stated they've got 110 members in their organisation. They're a great bunch of people. If the council had to do this on their own bat, it would cost a hell of a lot more. So this is going to be owned all the way through by council. These people are doing the work. We're contributing. It has to be done. And when you hand a lease over, through my experiences of leasing out small business, you have to be compliant with all things that are required, and toilets is one of the main ones, and you must have compliant toilet facilities, and that's only one of the three. So the ceilings, all that sort of stuff, the work has to be done. The toilet is the most needed one in the whole lot because we have to be compliant, and for that building to be compliant and to be able to be legally leased out to anybody, a person, has to have compliant disability toilets. So it's a no-brainer for me, and to support the community. And as I said last time, if there was other community organisations that come across in our region that were looking to lease out council-owned facilities, I'd be offering the same support to them. So I'm more than happy to support this. So Councillor Shoemaker, you're as the mover, are you right to reply or are you right to go to the vote?
You're right to go to the vote.
Okay, Council. So the officer's recommendation is that the South Burnett Regional Council fund in the second quarter budget review the request from the Kingaroy Chamber of Commerce Inc. for financial support to the value of $53,877.72 for 1, new compliant toilet facilities suitable for use by people with disabilities, $31,246.72 GST inclusive. 2, contribute to the additional cost over and above plasterboard to supply of black form ply ceiling with express shadow line joints, $15,416 GST inclusive. And 3, installation of R3.5 bats to the ceiling cavity concurrently with new ceiling construction, $7,215 GST inclusive. All those in favour? Councillors Potter, Henson, Froloff, Shoemaker and Jones. Against? Councillor Duff. The resolution has been carried 5 votes to 1. Thank you.
Okay, resuming at item 15.3, Kingaroy Aerodrome Master Plan, page 241. And from the committee meeting, we have a recommendation that South Burnett Regional Council notes the Chief Executive Officer operational decision to establish an officer position dedicated to the operation of aerodromes, and supporting stakeholder engagement for the master plan for Kingaroy Aerodrome, and considers a future budget discussions the allocation of resources for seeking specific technical advisors for elements of the scope and specification outlined in the invitation to offer for the master plan. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Froloff. Speakers? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. CEO. Certainly noteworthy the work you've done there. 15.4, Queensland Housing Investment Growth Initiative at 242. The Standing Committee has recommended that South Burnett Regional Council provide in principle support to entering into a partnership with Regional Housing Limited to submit an application under the Queensland Housing Investment Growth Initiative to develop additional social housing in Kingaroy. As part of the partnership agreement, in accordance with Section 236 1B1, exceptions for valuable non-current asset contracts of the Local Government Regulations 2012, Council disposed of the following vacant land to Regional Housing Limited at no cost: 278 Kingaroy Street, Kingaroy; 1 Kelvin Street, Kingaroy; 10 Agnes Street, Kingaroy; and 36-40 Banksia Way, Kingaroy, and the lot and plan numbers are as presented. Do we have a sorry. Oh, sorry. Oh, 27B, sorry, 27B, Kingaroy Street, Kingaroy. Thank you, Councillor. My apologies. Okay, we've got some hands up. We have a mover. Yep, Councillor Shoemaker and Councillor Potter seconded. You got in early. Thank you both. Okay, so there we have it. Councillor Shoemaker, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is certainly a very exciting opportunity for council and our region at the moment. As we know, we are in a housing crisis, and the words from the Bundaberg Housing Forum that I attended certainly ring in my mind that the housing crisis we can all expect across Queensland is only going to get worse. This is an opportunity to really investigate those lots of land that council owns that currently aren't offering any value to our community, and consider putting bricks and mortar on them, which is really exciting. And some of the designs that have been developed by regional housing really do, I really want to I guess, encourage my community to understand the change in social housing and tenancy management that's occurred over a number of years of experience. Regional Housing Limited is a Tier 1 housing agency, and they work very closely with their tenants to ensure they maintain their tenancy. Our goal here is to achieve sustainable housing outcomes in the region, places where people will live, and certainly I think it's important that our community realises that there's a lot of planning that goes into the design of these projects to ensure they're inclusive and encourage better housing and community in outcomes, because you've got mixed reasons to live in a housing development such as this. So the real game changer is that the way in which regional housing put tenancies into social housing, they look at things like a family living with perhaps an elderly resident who doesn't have family in the area, and how they can support each other. So it's a real holistic approach to housing. It's not just putting people in dire need into places and causing community disruption. There's genuinely a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes to make sure these housing outcomes are sustainable in our region. What I hope to achieve is that by providing more bricks and mortar and more houses, we can free up some of our rental houses in the area as well, because we all know that our vacancy rate is under 1% here in the South Burnett, which is extraordinary. And my heart really does go out to the property managers of our region trying to navigate that at the moment, where they've got good people signing up, trying to find places to live, and there just isn't anything for them. Yeah, I can only imagine how hard it is when you've got 15 different applications, 15 different sad stories, and somebody who can afford to pay a little bit more comes in and says, well, I'm desperate for a house, I've got a job in the area, I'm going to pay you extra. What that property manager has to do to navigate some of those conversations, I can only imagine, and I really do. My heart does go out for them. I think they're doing an exceptional job in really difficult times. So this is just such an exciting start. I think it would be wonderful to partner with Regional Housing. They are a Tier 1 agency, and to leverage some of that $9 billion that the state government's putting on the table for housing outcomes. I think it's important that we get them in the South Burnett. At the moment, other areas like Bundaberg and Fraser Coast, Regional Housing has over 200 properties that they manage the tenancies of in those areas. And in the South Burnett, there's fewer than 22 available properties. It's just hard to get my head around. This is a great opportunity to dip the toe in the water, to shape some projects up, to see what is possible when we collaborate and work with the different levels of government, and certainly with our not-for-profit sector. So I just cannot support this enough. It's been wonderful working with Councillor Potter and GMO May and the team to bring this to the table, and certainly CEO Mark's done a lot of work in that housing space as well. And I know the Mayor, you've done some advocacy as well. So it's just wonderful to be in a position where we will actually be the first application that Regional Housing will be able to put on the table, which is exciting. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, further speakers? No? Happy with that? We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 15.5, award of contract cleaning of council buildings and facilities in the Nanango area. That's at 244. And officers' recommendation is that council award a contract for the cleaning of council buildings and facilities in the Nanango and Blackbutt areas to T&S Labouring for a maximum term of 5 years, which consists of an initial 12-month and a further two further options, for 24-month periods. Do we have a mover? Councillor Froloff, seconder Councillor Potter. Councillor Froloff, did you have anything to add to that? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm happy with this contract being with TNS. They do a magnificent job in our Nanango buildings. You walk in, it's immaculate, and they're local. And congratulations.
Thank you, Councillor. Further speakers? We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. We have a late item, Council, which we received. 15.6 is the development of a master plan for Memorial Park Precinct, Kingaroy, and the recommendation is that Council awards a successful tender to develop a staged master plan for the Kingaroy Memorial Park Precinct to Otium Planning Group Incorporated for $127,600. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconder? Seconder for that? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you. Speakers? Any questions? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you.
Just, I guess, with the leave of the chamber, Mr. Mayor, I note that this was a late report, and I certainly haven't been able to go through it too extensively, so I hoped GMO may be able to give us an overview of the report before we make a decision.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and apologies for the late agenda item but we were keen to actually get this one in before the end of the calendar year so we could move forward on this project. So we had 5 tenders. We did have number of really good tenders. The lowest price, we did have a low price tender, but which was really wasn't comparable in comparison to the community consultation that was offered by the other tenderers. So it was through the ranking that was probably really the real downfall for that. The lowest price tender is why it didn't score up as well as the others. So there was three really close tenderers. Obviously we excluded the highest tender. There was 3 really close tenders, and so it came down to in price wise, came down to assessment of again that community consultation aspects of their tender, as well as just the output. So the and relevant experience. So the tenderer that we've gone for is very experienced in similar projects, like through the Western Downs regions with pools and parks. So this is looking at Memorial Park precinct and the pool. So, yeah, where they really scored well. But yeah, it was hard to split. We had really close. It's had three really competitive tenders there. But it was really probably just in the outcome where we come with just that community consultation projects. We were really happy with what was proposed, the walkthroughs, and then some of the design work that they would do as part of it, and the imaging that we could use for funding applications. So if for future funding, some of the work that could be developed out of the community consultation and designs could be used in future funding applications. So yeah, went through the scoring process, and yeah, as you can see, they were very close. But that was I think any of those companies had the capabilities and experience, but that was just probably the what set them apart.
Thank you. So we've selected as the preferred tenderer OTM Planning Group, Green Eng Design, Liquid Blue and Cardno, and I understand they've all done work for us before. Have I got that right?
A couple of the groups. So as you can see with a lot of these, they are collaborations. So it's not so most of them have got a design component, and so it's not specifically one company running it, but the OTM Planning Group would be the lead contractor, but they've actually indicated who they'd be using for the design. So yeah, we definitely have used a couple of those previously.
Yep, and in terms of like costs, certainly I can see it's quite extensive, but my expectation would be that when the master planning process was over, we would have a shovel-ready project for a funding application, and essentially this is what it's going to cost to redevelop that precinct area and plan and design that in a way that actually achieves that outcome. Have I got that sort of correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And probably not one shovel-ready project, like a series of projects. So we also would like to have, because so you can actually stage and focus towards different funding. So that would be a key component of it, is actually that componentisation of smaller projects that can lead to the eventual outcome that you want to get to. So
to break the precinct up into almost bite-sized pieces, so that because the cost of redeveloping the pool, of course, and I know from a community point of view that is a priority for many in our community, and I know from the discussions we've had around maintenance, in some ways it's a bit of a ticking time bomb, but to include that in the design of the park, which was always our intent, and to then break that up so that we can find a funding strategy and funding partners to achieve that outcome.
Yeah, through you, Ms. Mayor, that's exactly right. We want to see the end picture, but we won't be able to get funding for it all at once. So we do need to make sure that the first project that we do isn't going to be in conflict with what we're doing down the track. So, and if we can get synergies with projects, but yeah, that's the whole idea of the master plan, is that we can actually see the finished vision, so that any of the little projects that go along the way can contribute to that.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. I'm fully supportive. I think it's important that there is a plan. It is a big project. It's quite an ambitious project. And I think to set up future councils for success, I think that planning component's really important. To be honest, in future budgets, what I think will be really important for this council is that we do allocate funding, and a specific amount of funding, to scope and do the planning required for projects like these, so that we are in some way shovel ready when funding opportunities become available, because following our discussions this morning, that's only certainly going to become more and more of a need. So I'm fully supportive of this. I think it's an exciting project. I do think the community consultation piece will be important. There are many stakeholders with a vested interest in that area, and I also think from a livability and lifestyle point of view, it's a very important project for the future, but I'd hate to see us do it in piecemeal slices, which I guess detract from that long-term goal and vision. So thank you for the work that's gone in. I'm supportive of the motion.
Thank you, General Manager. Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just some questions. So does it include like the design of the whole swimming pool complex, including the amenities blocks and the showers? And when we finish with all of this, will it have like estimated costings and, like you say, bite-sized pieces? And if we wanted to apply for funding for, the showers and toilets, that'll be separate and it would actually be designed up? Or what are we going to see for the value? I'm just hoping it's not just going to be a lot of pretty pictures that people just go, yep, that looks great. Is it going to be the actual designs of those particular, the pool, the design for this amenities block, design for the, the showers, design for potential whether landscaping, all of that, or how extensive? What are we asking for with this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so it will be broke up. You'll have a schedule of works and indicative costings. It won't be to the we won't be getting, say, design like construction drawings that you'd be actually able to submit as a building. If that's what you're asking, we won't actually have the design and construction drawings that you would put out to tender for for a tender for construction. So, but it will have those componentised down to the like the indicative, or I suppose what the works will be, but it won't have the actual construction and drawings as part of it. That the question?
Thank you, General Manager. Further questions before we wrap up? Yeah, General Manager, just a couple of comments before we conclude. Memorial Park is the only regional park, classified regional park in the South Burnett, and it's pleasing to see that you've got this to the point now where we can progress this body of work and have it shovel ready. And I really love the fact that you've focused in on community engagement, consultation as a key part of the selection criteria for the successful tenderer. So on behalf of Council, thank you very much for the work you've done and for progressing this. Well done. Thank you, General Manager. Councillor Potter, any concluding comments before we go to the vote? Happy with that? Okay, well, let's go to the vote then. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, 16.1, Federal Election Advocacy Plan. That's at 2:46. And so we have a recommendation that the Federal Election Advocacy Report be received for information and feedback on the priority areas contained within the report be provided to the Chief Executive Officer with a view to finalising the advocacy plan by February 2022. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconder. Councillor Frolov, thank you. Councillor Duff.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I sent through the proposal that I had put forward on behalf of the community for Flynn, and I just wanted to I've sent it through to the CEO. I just wanted to read it out so that the councillors are aware of what was put to Colin Boyce, because when he came, he wanted to meet with different community groups, and this is the list. So in the rural section, rural area, it was Mandubba-Geelong Road, single lane section, 25 million. In Wandai Showgrounds cattle stalls, rebuild 500,000. Coronation Park redevelopment, including play equipment and amenities upgrade, 250,000. Covered area for the Showgrounds cattle stalls, 500,000. Statue of Wandai's mate, 250,000. In Heisel, Memorial Park and Main Street redevelopment, including disability toilets and disability access, 250,000. In Proston, Blake Street livability improvements, including footpath and sensory garden, 200,000. New fence for the showgrounds, 40,000. Lighting for the arena at the showgrounds, 60,000. And railway park improvements, 100,000. In Monjur, Heritage Hall refurbishment, 200,000. And Geelong, cover the Bowls Club green with retractable shade, 300,000. And wheelchair access to the Bowls Club, 40,000. So they were the, when he came out and he met with the different community groups, that's the list that was put together. So I just wanted to table that, and I've sent it through to the CEO. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. And Mr. CEO, I imagine that can be taken on board with a view to finalising the plan between now and February, and other councillors could do a similar thing.
It can, Mayor. I suppose it's at certainly all those lists to be collated. We've got a copy of that one now. It's a level of detail that you want to go into with this document as far as individual projects, and I suppose this is what I took out of the workshop, out of the state plan. And if I've misheard or got it wrong, we haven't put the pretty bits in. It's just literally the key bits. So yeah, if councillors can forward it back early in the new year, see if we can get it back to the January ordinary for endorsement, or if it needs to go to the standing committee in February, but looking to get it finalised as in the new year, but absolutely reliant on councillor feedback. So yeah, please. Short answer, yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Thanks for bringing that to councillors' attention, Councillor Duff, and you've sent that through to the CEO. So other councillors, please feel free to provide your feedback to Mr. CEO over the coming weeks so that he can organise to finalise that in the new year. Any further speakers before we go to the vote? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 16.2, Boido Board Representative. That one is at page 250. And so we have a situation here, Councillor, of course, where this is laid on the table. So the first motion, a procedural motion, that Boido Board Representative be taken off the table. Do we have a mover for such? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you. Councillor Potter has seconded. Over to you, Councillor Potter. Oh, no, sorry, now we've got to go to the recommendation. Yes. Sorry, Mr. CEO, yes, thank you. And so we then have to move. So those in favour? Yep, sorry. Carried unanimously. Thank you all. I'm jumping the gun. So procedural resolution passed. The matter's been taken off the table and now is up for discussion. And we need to seek to appoint a council representative to the Boido Board. Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for your work on the Boido Board to date, Councillor Shoemaker. I'd like to nominate Councillor Duff actually for the Boido Board, please.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So we have a recommendation, a motion that South Bennett Regional Council appoint Councillor Duff as the council representative to the Boido Board. Do we have a seconder? Seconder? Yep. Councillor Henshin. Okay. Did you want to speak first, Councillor Potter? Are you happy to go ahead? Other speakers? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you.
I just had a question. CEO Mark, I'm fully supportive of Councillor Duff taking the position. CEO Mark, though, we had some preliminary discussions and there was a staff member, I was of the understanding, who was potentially interested in being a part of the board, and I thought would bring a wealth of governance advice to the table, which I could see being quite critical at this point in time. So just wondered if you...
All staff that were contacted and whilst express interest and are happy to support in the background, none of them wanted to put their name forward. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Anything further? Councillor Potter, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I think at the moment with Councillor Duff having rural resilience, I think it works quite well in with what Boido are working with at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor. Further speakers? We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 16.3, partner council membership with Toowoomba and Surat Basin Enterprise. Now that's at 252. So the committee has considered the matter, and committee's recommendation is that South Bennett Regional Council become a partner regional council with TISB, the Toowoomba and Surat Basin Enterprise, and that the Chief Executive Officer be given delegation to negotiate the terms of a diamond membership package to include the benefits as presented at page 253. Do we have a mover? Councillor Shoemaker, Councillor Duff, thank you. Okay, speakers. Councillor Shoemaker.
My apologies. I just wanted to submit an amendment. It would be the terms of a platinum membership package. So I had provided the funding amount of between 17 to 20,000, which I think is a great opportunity for us to dip the toe in the water and to start out. And a diamond membership package is up around the $30,000. So I'm quite happy to start with a platinum package. There are other key stakeholders in our region that will have a diamond package that we can leverage from. And I think the platinum package is a good opportunity to get a seat at the table, mindful of our budget and the very limited budget and resources in regional development. So that's where I'm at. If council's supportive of a diamond package, by all means, but just reviewed that and realised that a platinum package is that $17,000 to $20,000. Further to that, I just really think this is an exciting opportunity for our council, and we certainly must be at the table with our counterparts in Toowoomba and Surat Basin, listening and learning, and certainly working together to leverage the massive amount of growth that is happening in that area. I think we have key shared interests in the QRES, the Queensland Renewable Energy Zones, and that those renewable energy proponents are working very closely with Toowoomba and Surat Basin enterprises. So I see a giant opportunity. I think it's very important we're building relationships with them and leveraging those supply and logistic opportunities for our region. I also think from a targeted advocacy support point of view, these are professionals in the space. The work that they do, certainly in terms of health, agriculture and energy, is next to none, as well as the manufacturing sectors. And they're all areas that we have identified in our regional development plan that we want to progress here in the South Burnett. I think the opportunity to lean in and learn from their briefing papers and certainly use their influence in the many levels of government to achieve outcomes here in the South Burnett will be important. I also see a giant opportunity for Toowoomba as it grows and expands to the point where it cannot grow and expand any further. We are literally a stone throw away, and I would love to see some of those growth opportunities or those big players in those areas consider our region, our affordable land, our available workforce for their growth and development. So I think this will be a long-standing relationship, one that's very important to our region. And yes, I think a platinum package would be a great way to start, with the view that we could grow that following further budget discussions into the future.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Duff.
Through Mr. Mayor, just a question to what a platinum package actually offers, because I know when they came here that they talked about a fee for service. So if there was something that we particularly wanted, that they would put a quote forward, and if they could deliver, they would do so if we were happy with the quote. So I'm just wondering what that means by having a platinum package.
Yeah, so platinum package is a membership. It's an opportunity to sit at every table. It's an opportunity to receive all the briefing information and be a part of the networking events and things that they host. In terms of that targeted work, there will be some of that support included in the package, but then you're right, in terms of fee for services, if there was a particular project that we really wanted to lean in on, we have the opportunity, just like we have previously with other agencies or supports like BIEDO, for instance, to leverage some of the funding that we receive and partner with them in delivering those outcomes. So there is an opportunity for that additional work if we see, at that time that we want to achieve those things. The platinum package is, I guess, a good opportunity to be at the table, learn how things are working. I think, ideally, I would love to see us take on that diamond membership package. But I think the platinum package is a good opportunity to start to get some runs on the board and to really understand the work that they're doing and what it is that we would like to achieve through the collaboration further. So I think it's a good start and something to work toward. And as I said, there are other key corporate players in our region that have that diamond package who've indicated they're happy to partner with us as well if there's specific parcels of work. So yes, I think it's an exciting time.
Thank you, councillors. Okay, further speakers? Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Fully support this, and it wouldn't have bothered me if we had left that diamond membership there, because an extra 10,000 in this particular thing, I can see the enormous benefit going forward. It's a bit like the investment we made in the Rackus machine on the roads network, hugely successful. Take on Councillor Shoemaker's comments around the ability to network and all that and get in contact with a lot of people, and the services that you may need to pay for, just like paying for consultants if we're going anywhere else. So it's no different to what we're operating under now. I've had I've been lucky enough to briefly encounter Tisby over my first 4 years, and I was, the brief encounters I had, that was quite successful, and I met a lot of different people that were able to help us, particularly in roads and all that sort of stuff and other discussions. So, no, I fully support this for Councillor Shoemaker. As a Regional Development Officer, I can see enormous potential in this, and the councillor has already alluded to that there's other high stake, high corporate people in this region that are on the diamond that we need to work with collaboratively moving forward. And I was privy to that conversation where they were more than happy to coerce with us and get results for our region. So fully support this, Mr. Mayor. And like I said, it wouldn't have been against the diamond straight up.
Further speakers? Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, 17.1, Delegated Authority Reports at 2:54. It's recommended that the Delegated Authority Report be received. Do we have a mover? Councillor Henson, seconder Councillor Potter. Speakers? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 17.2, List of Correspondence pending completion of assessment report. That one is at 5:34. Yes, quite a bit of paper there. And it's recommended that the list of correspondence pending completion of assessment report be received. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconder Councillor Potter. Speakers? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 18.1, question on notice at 5:36. The question on notice is in relation to the October Infrastructure Standing Committee meeting. Question was an update on CBD works at Blackbutt in terms of future reporting each month. The response is that it is intended that a more comprehensive update on the Blackbutt CBD project be presented in the Infrastructure Standing Committee reports once the project commences. This is currently the work happening on the ground, as the project is currently in the procurement stage. The costs to date primarily relate to pre-construction costs such as landscape, architect design, and project management. On commencement of the project, the costing information would form part of the monthly report, and attached for your information only is a recent media release on the project. So it's recommended that response to the question raised by Councillor Duff be received and noted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Froloff, seconded Councillor Duff. Any further questions on that for General Manager? Comfortable with that? We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you very much for that response, General Manager. Thank you. Okay, right. Moving on to 19. Okay, so just got to look for that page of mine there. Oh, here we are. I've got it here. Okay, so item 19. Recommendation is that Council considers the confidential reports listed below in a meeting closed to the public in accordance with Section 254J of the Local Government Regulation 2012. 19.1, water reconnection at Lot 1, SP 256027, 4 Meek Street, Tingura, under Section 254J-F of the Local Government Regulation. 19.2, organisational review, considered under Section 254J-B of the Local Government Regulation. 19.3, Rainmaker Strategic Services, considered to be confidential under Section 254J-G of the Local Government Regulation. 19.4, Performance Review, Chief Executive Officer and Contract Renewal 2021, considered to be confidential under Section 254J-B of the Local Government Regulation. Do we have a mover? Councillor Froloff, seconded Councillor Duff. Okay, right. Okay, so we have that there. Speakers, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. We'll now close the open meeting into confidential at 2:56 p.m. Thank you. Okay, so we're back live, Linnell. So welcome back, everybody, to Open Council. I would now like to move a procedural motion that we escalate item 19.4 to be dealt with as the next item on the agenda. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Froloff, thank you. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, so we're now dealing with item 19.4, which is performance review, chief executive officer and contract renewal 2021. And we'll just get that recommendation up. So from discussions with council, it's recommended that South Bennett Regional Council receives the performance review report, chief executive officer, December 21, and that the mayor be authorised to sign the performance review report of the chief executive officer, December 2021, and the recommended remuneration schedule contained within the report, effective from 4 January 2022, excluding the CEO's strategic objectives for 21-22, that a workshop facilitated by manager P&C be held in January 22 for all councillors and CEO to discuss the CEO's strategic objectives, KPIs, for 21-22, ongoing performance review process for the next 4-year contract, and a report be brought to the February ordinary meeting for adoption by council. Do we have a mover for such? Councillor Froloff, seconder, Councillor Potter, thank you. Speakers, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. The next part of the item on the agenda, that South Bennett Regional Council, in accordance with Section 194 of the Local Government Act 2009, appoint Mark Pitt to the position of Chief Executive Officer from 1 July 2022 to 30 June 2026, and that the Mayor be authorised to sign a contract of employment with limited changes to the current terms and conditions of employment. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconder, Councillor Froloff. Okay, speakers, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. We'll now move on to deal with item 19.1, and we'll ask for the CEO to return. Thank you, Councillor Henson. Yeah. Thank you, Manager. Happy to proceed. Okay, 19.1 is recommended that the customer pays the current connection charge as per the adopted fees and charges at $1,040. Now that relates to water reconnection at Lot 1 SP 256027 4 Meek Street, Tingura. Recommended that customer pays the current connection charge as per the fees and charges at $1,040. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Jones, seconder, Councillor Froloff. Speakers, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. Welcome back, Mr. CEO. Yes. So we're up to 19.2, organisational review. And the recommendation is that the South Bennett Regional Council organisational review report be received and the consultation draft structure be released for formal staff and councillor consultation through workshops prior to a report being presented to the February 2022 ordinary meeting of council on the outcome of the consultation period. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, seconder, Councillor Henson. Speakers, those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. Final item is 19.3, Rainmaker Strategic Services. Recommendation is that South Bennett Regional Council engage Rainmaker Strategic Services for the period 1 January 2022 to 30 June 2022 to work through the office of the CEO with the Mayor, Portfolio Councillor and Divisional Councillor, where applicable, on strategic priorities of council. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, second, Councillor Duff. Speakers, those in favour, Councillor Jones, Duff, Potter, Henson, Froloff and Otto. Those against, Councillor Shoemaker. The motion has been carried 6 votes to 1. Council, that now concludes the meeting. We'll call it to a close at 5:04 p.m. Thank you all.